It is 3 in the morning. The world outside is still, wrapped in a deep and velvet silence. But inside your mind, a relentless storm is raging. Your body is tired, yearning for rest, but your thoughts are a frantic blur of activity, a movie of yesterday's regrets and tomorrow's anxieties projected onto the blank screen of the ceiling. You feel a familiar tension in your shoulders, a tightness in your jaw, a subtle, humming vibration of effort throughout your entire being. It is the feeling of holding on, of bracing for an impact that never seems to come, yet is always imminent. It is the feeling of trying so very hard, to fix, to control, to understand, to simply keep your head above water. This is the exhaustion that does not come from physical labor, but from the silent, unending war waged within the battlefield of your own mind. If you feel this, know that you are not alone. This state of quiet desperation is not a personal failure. It is not a sign of weakness. It has become a quiet pandemic of the modern soul. We are taught from our first breath to strive, to achieve, to grasp, to hold on tighter. We are praised for our strength, for our resilience, for our ability to bear immense weight without complaint. But no one ever teaches us the art of setting the weight down. No one shows us the profound strength required to simply let go. The anxiety and the blockage you feel do not stem from your inability to carry the load. They stem from the unquestioned belief that you must carry it all the time. But what if the answer wasn't to build stronger arms, but to recognize that the weight itself is optional? What if the path to peace wasn't a struggle, but a surrender? This is not a new idea, but an ancient wisdom, a gentle path carved through the centuries by those who have also felt this weight. It is the wisdom of Buddhist teachings, presented not as a doctrine to believe in, but as a practical science of the mind, a clear and compassionate mirror to help you see how your own mind works, how it creates its own burdens, and most importantly, how it can set itself free. This journey begins not with a demand or a difficult task, but with a simple, radical permission, a gentle whisper to the most exhausted part of your being. You don't have to struggle anymore. You are invited to simply lay the burden down. Let us begin by looking directly at this inner world, this place you inhabit every single moment of your life. If you listen closely, right now, you can hear it. A constant stream of chatter, a narrator that never sleeps. It comments, it judges, it remembers, it plans, it worries, it desires. One moment, it is replaying a conversation from 10 years ago, searching for a different word you should have said. The next, it leaps into a future that does not exist, constructing elaborate scenarios of triumph or disaster. In the ancient traditions of the East, this ceaseless activity is called the monkey mind. The name is a perfect description. Imagine a monkey in a tree, restless, agitated, never still. It swings from one branch of thought to another, grabbing a fruit of memory here, chattering at a shadow of fear there, constantly in motion, chaotic and untamed. This is the state in which most of us live, so deeply immersed in this mental noise that we don't even recognize it as noise. We believe it is simply who we are. And this is the very first and most profound misunderstanding we must gently untangle. You are not your thoughts. The voice in your head is not you. The thoughts, feelings, and sensations that flow through your awareness are just that, phenomena flowing through awareness. They are like clouds passing through the vast, open sky. Some are dark and heavy with rain, others are white and wispy. They drift in, they linger for a time, and they drift away. But you are not the clouds. You are the sky. The sky does not cling to the clouds, nor does it try to push them away. It simply allows them to be, to come and go, knowing its own boundless nature is unchanged by their passing. A thought, when you look at it closely, is a remarkably insubstantial thing. It is a flicker of energy, an electrochemical impulse in the brain, a whisper of language or an image. It has no inherent reality, no solid ground. Yet we give these fleeting phantoms the power to define our entire existence. We take a passing thought of sadness, and from it, we construct an identity. I am a sad person. We take a fleeting thought of anxiety and build a reality around it. My life is a dangerous and threatening place. We have mistaken the weather for the sky. The first step toward peace is to simply notice this, to see a thought arise, and to say to yourself with gentle curiosity, "Ah, a thought has appeared, a thought of worry, a thought of planning." You do not need to do anything with it, just notice that it is there. In this simple act of noticing, you create a tiny sliver of space, a moment of separation, and in that space, freedom is born. Naturally, when we first become aware of this inner chaos, our immediate instinct is to try and stop it. We think peace can only be found if we can silence the monkey mind, if we can achieve a state of perfect mental blankness. So we begin to fight. We sit down, close our eyes, and command ourselves, "Do not think." This is perhaps the most common and frustrating trap of all. The attempt to suppress thought is like trying to flatten a rippling pond with an iron. The harder you press, the more you struggle, the more turbulent the water becomes. Try it for a moment. For the next 30 seconds, try with all your might not to think of a large pink elephant. Do not, under any circumstances, allow an image of a pink elephant with big floppy ears to enter your mind. What happened? The pink elephant likely became the sole inhabitant of your mental world. Your resistance gave it strength. Your struggle fed it. This is what we do with our anxious or painful thoughts. We try to push them away, to argue with them, to distract ourselves from them. But this resistance is a form of tension. It is the very struggling and bracing that we spoke of earlier. It takes an enormous amount of energy to fight against your own mind, and it is a battle you can never, ever win. The goal is not to silence the mind. A living mind thinks, just as a living heart beats. The goal is to change your relationship with the thoughts, to move from being a prisoner locked inside the cell of your thinking, to becoming a wise and compassionate warden who holds the keys. There is a beautiful story that illustrates this. A young, earnest monk went to his master, his face etched with frustration. "Master," he said, "I have been meditating as you instructed, but I am failing. I cannot stop my thoughts. They come endlessly, one after another. The more I try to push them out, the more they storm my mind. What should I do?" The old master listened with a soft smile. He did not offer a new technique or a secret mantra. He simply said, "Come with me." He led the young monk out of the monastery and down a winding path to the bank of a great flowing river. The water moved with steady power, swirling around rocks, carrying leaves and branches downstream. "Sit here," the master said, pointing to a smooth, flat rock at the water's edge. "Now, I want you to use your great determination to stop this river from flowing." The young monk looked at his master, bewildered. "But master, that's impossible. It is the nature of a river to flow. I could no more stop this river than I could stop the sun from rising." The master's smile widened. "Exactly," he said. "Your mind is just like this river. It is the nature of the mind to flow with thoughts. Your task is not to try and stop the impossible. Your task is to sit on the bank, here on this rock of awareness, and simply watch the river flow. See the thoughts come, see them stay for a moment, and see them pass. Do not jump into the river. Do not be swept away by its current. Do not condemn the river for being a river. Just watch, and realize you are not the water. You are the one who is watching." This story reveals the profound shift in perspective that we are invited to make. We expend so much of our life force in the river, being tossed about by the currents of thought and emotion. Think of the sheer exhaustion that comes from a day of worry. The problem itself might be small, or may not even have happened yet, but the act of worrying, of mentally rehearsing disasters, of churning the same thoughts over and over again, is what depletes us. It's like leaving a dozen computer programs running in the background of your system. The processor slows down, the battery drains, and the machine overheats. Our mental energy is a precious, finite resource. When it is constantly being consumed by the monkey mind, there is little left for genuine connection, for creativity, for joy, for simply being present with the beauty of an ordinary moment. The drain on our vitality comes not from the events of our lives, but from our ceaseless commentary about the events of our lives. The real danger, the one that lies at the root of so much suffering, is the danger of complete identification with this stream of thought. When we believe we are the river, we are at its mercy. When a dark thought of self-doubt flows by, we are pulled under into the depths of depression. When an angry thought surges, we become the anger, lashing out and creating harm for ourselves and others. When a fearful thought appears, we are paralyzed by its cold grip. In this state of identification, there is no space, no freedom, no choice. We are simply reacting, slaves to the random and conditioned patterns of our own minds. Breaking this identification is the single most powerful step you can take toward inner peace. It is the beginning of waking up from the dream of thought. When you can see a thought as just a thought, you reclaim your power. You realize it is not a command. It is not an ultimate truth. It is just a cloud passing through the sky of your awareness. You can let it go. So, as we sit here together on the metaphorical bank of the river, let this be the only practice for now, the practice of watching, without judgment, without a goal, simply noticing the constant flow of thought, memory, and sensation that moves through you. Notice the monkey mind as it leaps from a memory of breakfast to a worry about a future appointment, to a judgment about the sound you just heard. Do not try to stop it. Do not criticize yourself for it. Simply observe with a gentle, patient curiosity. In doing so, you begin to familiarize yourself with the landscape of your own mind. And you may begin to wonder, as you watch this ceaseless flow, a very important question. If I am the one watching the thoughts, then who am I? If I am not the river, what is this silent, still presence on the bank? This question, this gentle turning of attention back upon itself, is the doorway to our next exploration. It is the first step toward discovering the silent observer who has been here all along, waiting patiently for you to come home. We ended our last reflection on the bank of the river, asking a pivotal question. If I am not the river of thought, then who am I? Who is this silent presence that is aware of the flow? This question is not a riddle to be solved with the intellect, but a doorway to be walked through with gentle attention. Let us step through it now. Beyond the noise, beneath the restless chatter of the monkey mind, there exists a profound stillness. It is a dimension of yourself that is untouched by any thought, any emotion, or any circumstance. This is the silent observer, the knowing presence, pure awareness. It has been with you every moment of your life, yet it is so subtle, so quiet, that we almost always overlook it, captivated as we are by the loud and dramatic theater of our minds. Finding this observer is not about creating something new. You cannot practice to get it, or strive to achieve it. It is already here. The only task is to recognize it, to shift your attention from the objects of experience to the awareness that holds all experience. Let's try a small experiment. Right here, right now. Notice the feeling of the air on your skin. Is it cool or warm? Notice any sounds around you, the distant hum of traffic, the whisper of a fan, the sound of my voice. Now turn your attention inward. Notice a thought that is present in your mind. It could be a judgment about this process, a memory, a plan. You don't need to name it, just notice its presence. Now, notice a feeling in your body, perhaps a sense of calm or restlessness or tightness in your shoulders. Now ask yourself this: who is it that is noticing all of these things? There is a capacity within you that was able to register the air on your skin, the sounds, the thought, and the feeling. This capacity itself did not feel cool or warm. It was not the sound, it was not the thought, it was not the feeling. It was the simple, clear, non-judgmental awareness in which all of these experiences appeared and disappeared. That is the silent observer. It is the vast open space of the sky we spoke of, and everything else is just weather passing through. For a moment, simply rest in that knowing. Rest in the awareness that is aware. It requires no effort. It is the most natural thing in the world. It is your fundamental nature. Developing a relationship with this silent, knowing part of yourself requires a shift from doing to being. A key quality of this observer is that it is entirely free of judgment. It does not have an opinion. It doesn't label thoughts as good or bad, spiritual or unspiritual. It simply registers their presence. Its language is simple. This is here now. To cultivate this, you can imagine yourself sitting peacefully on the side of a busy road. The cars, trucks, and motorcycles that drive by are your thoughts and emotions. A flashy red sports car might be a thought of excitement or desire. A slow, noisy garbage truck might be a painful memory or a self-critical thought. A bus full of people might be a complex worry about your family or your job. Your task is not to run out into the road and try to direct the traffic. Your task is not to chase after the sports car or throw rocks at the garbage truck. Your task is simply to sit on the curb, in the safety of your own awareness, and watch the traffic of your mind go by. You notice a car appear in the distance. You watch it approach. You see it clearly as it passes, and you watch it disappear. You do this with every vehicle, impartially. By doing this, you stop being a victim of your own mental traffic. You are no longer being run over by your own thoughts. You are a witness. In this witnessing, you find a profound sense of peace and equanimity. A powerful metaphor for this is the experience of watching a movie. Imagine you are in a dark theater, completely engrossed in a compelling film. The story is so powerful that you feel what the characters feel. Your heart pounds during a suspenseful chase scene. Tears well up in your eyes during a moment of heartbreak. You laugh out loud at a witty line of dialogue. For all intents and purposes, the experience feels completely real. You are lost in the world on the screen. However, there is always in the background a subtle, unwavering awareness that knows you are sitting in a theater. You know that the building is not actually on fire, that the actors are not really in danger, that this is all a play of light and sound. That background awareness is the silent observer. Our daily life is very much like this movie. We become completely engrossed in the drama of our personal story, our successes and failures, our relationships, our hopes and fears. We forget that we are the awareness in which this entire story is unfolding. To cultivate the observer is to gently remember that you are in the theater. This doesn't mean the movie of your life becomes boring, or that you become numb and detached. On the contrary, you can engage with it even more fully, but without being completely lost in it. You are no longer at the mercy of every plot twist. You have found your seat, the stable ground of your own being. This discovery is the discovery of a true and lasting refuge. When your identity is invested in the ever-changing thoughts and emotions, you are like a person building a house on shifting sand. You are constantly vulnerable, constantly bracing for the next wave of change. But when you learn to ground your sense of self in the silent observer, you have built your house upon solid rock. The storms of life will still come. The winds of change will still blow. The waves of emotion will still crash. but you, in your essence, are secure. You have found the calm, quiet eye of the hurricane. The thoughts may be a raging storm, but the observer is the profound peace at the center. The emotions can be a turbulent sea, but the observer is the deep, silent water far beneath the waves, utterly undisturbed. This is the inner sanctuary that the great sages and mystics speak of. It is not in a faraway cave or a secluded monastery. It is right here, inside you, accessible in any moment that you choose to turn your attention away from the noise and toward the silence that listens to the noise. It is a place of absolute safety. The transformative power of this practice lies in the creation of a gap. When you are identified with a thought or emotion, there is no space. There is the feeling, and you are the feeling. For example, when anger arises, you say, "I am angry." This statement is a total identification. The I and the anger have merged into one. In this state, you have very little choice but to act out the anger. You are possessed by it. But when you are resting in the silent observer, the experience is different. Anger arises, and the observer notes, "There is a feeling of anger arising in me. Can you feel the difference?" In that subtle shift of language is a universe of freedom. I am angry is a prison cell. I am aware of anger is a vast open field in which the anger is allowed to appear. By creating this gap of awareness between yourself and your experience, you are no longer compelled by it. You have a choice. You can observe the energy of the anger, feel its heat in your body, watch its accompanying thoughts, all without becoming the anger. You can simply be the space for it. And what you will find, if you allow an emotion to be there without resisting it or acting on it, is that it will eventually run out of fuel and dissolve all on its own. In this space, wisdom is born. In this space, conscious response replaces blind reaction. So, how do we strengthen our connection to this observer? How do we learn to abide in this peaceful awareness more of the time, especially when the movie of life becomes particularly intense? The mind, like the monkey, is accustomed to constant movement. The river of thought has a powerful current, and it is easy to be swept away. To stay on the bank, we need an anchor. We need something to hold on to that is solid, real, and always in the present moment. Fortunately, we are all born with the perfect anchor. It is a process that is with us from the moment of our birth to the moment of our death, a steady, reliable rhythm that connects our mind to our body, and our body to life itself. It is the simple, profound, and life-giving miracle of the breath. To learn to rest as the observer, we will first learn to rest our attention on the breath. This is the thread that will lead us home. We have arrived at a place of profound potential. We have seen the turbulent river of the mind, and we have discovered the silent observer on the shore, the unwavering awareness that is our true nature. But we have also acknowledged that the river's current is strong, and the habit of being swept away is deeply ingrained. To truly abide in the peace of the observer, we need an anchor. We need a friend to hold our hand, a steady companion to call us back whenever we get lost. That friend, that anchor, is your own breath. This may sound almost too simple. The breath, we do it more than 20,000 times a day without a single thought. It is the most overlooked, taken for granted process of our existence. And yet, within its simple, humble rhythm lies the key to calming the mind, soothing the body, and anchoring yourself firmly in the reality of the present moment. Your breath is the most loyal companion you will ever have. It has been with you since the moment you were born, and it will stay with you until your very last. It asks for nothing, yet it gives you everything. The invitation now is to turn and meet this lifelong friend, perhaps for the very first time. The first and most immediate power of the breath is its unwavering honesty. The breath can only exist in the now. Think about it. You cannot breathe in the past. You cannot take a breath that belongs to next Tuesday. You can think about the past, and you can worry about the future, but you can only breathe right here, right now. The mind is a time traveler, constantly leaping between the graveyard of memory and the fantasy land of projection. The body, however, lives in the present moment, and the breath is the most vital, rhythmic, and accessible sensation of the living body. Therefore, when you place your attention on the feeling of your own breathing, you are yanking the leash of the monkey mind. You are pulling it back from its frantic swinging between yesterday and tomorrow and forcing it to land right here on the solid branch of the present moment. Each breath is a self-contained island of reality. The in-breath happens now, the out-breath happens now. In a world of chaos and uncertainty, the next breath is a guarantee. It is a safe harbor, a place you can always return to, no matter how fierce the storm of thought and emotion may be. Anchoring to the breath is the practice of repeatedly, gently, and lovingly returning to the only moment that ever truly exists. This one. The breath is more than just an anchor. It is also a bridge. It is the sacred link between your mind and your body, the conscious and the unconscious. Observe the connection in your own experience. When you feel anxious or frightened, what happens to your breath? It becomes quick, shallow, and constrained to the upper chest. When you are relaxed and at peace, perhaps reading a book on a quiet afternoon, how do you breathe? The breath is slow, deep, and it originates from the belly. This connection is not a coincidence. It is a fundamental feature of our biology. It is a two-way street. Your emotional state profoundly affects your breathing pattern, but just as importantly, your conscious breathing pattern can profoundly affect your emotional state. This is a discovery of immense power. It means you are not helpless against waves of anxiety or stress. By intentionally slowing down and deepening your breath, you are sending a direct biological signal to your nervous system that says, it's okay, you are safe, you can relax. You are using the conscious, physical rhythm of the breath to communicate with the deep, unconscious parts of your brain that regulate fear and safety. The breath is the messenger that travels between the kingdom of the mind and the kingdom of the body, creating harmony and dialogue between them. A great Zen master, Thich Nhat Hanh, taught a beautiful way to practice with the breath, not as a rigid discipline, but as a tender act of friendship. He suggested we learn to smile to our breath. He taught us not to control it, but to enjoy it. The practice can be as simple as this. As you breathe in, you say silently to yourself, breathing in, I know that I am breathing in. And as you breathe out, you say, breathing out, I know that I am breathing out. That's all. No struggle, no effort to make the breath deeper or longer, just a simple, gentle recognition. You are meeting your breath with awareness. You can treat it as you would a beloved child or a dear friend you haven't seen in a long time. Welcome it, cherish it. As you become more comfortable, you can deepen the practice. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. This smile is not a forced grin, but a gentle expression of peace, an acknowledgement of the miracle of being alive in this moment. In this practice, mindfulness of the breath becomes an act of self-love, a way of nurturing and caring for yourself. It is not about achieving a state of blankness, but about cultivating a state of gentle, loving presence. Let us try this together now. You don't need to change your posture, just bring your attention inward. For a few moments, stop thinking about the breath and start feeling it. Find the place in your body where the sensation of breathing is most clear to you. For some, it is the subtle feeling of the cool air entering the nostrils and the warmer air leaving. For others, it is the gentle rise and fall of the chest. And for others still, it is the soft expansion and contraction of the abdomen, the belly. There is no right or wrong place. Simply choose one spot and let your attention rest there, as you would rest a butterfly on a flower. Feel the beginning of one in-breath. Follow the sensation all the way through, and feel it as it turns into the out-breath. There is no need to change a thing. The body knows how to breathe perfectly on its own. Your only job is to be the kind and curious witness. And when your mind wanders, which it will, because that is its nature, the moment you notice it has wandered is a moment of victory. You have woken up. Without any self-criticism, without any frustration, gently and lovingly guide your attention back to the anchor, back to the feeling of the breath. Each time you do this, you are strengthening the muscle of mindfulness. You are carving a new neural pathway in your brain, the pathway of returning home. This simple act of conscious breathing is one of the most powerful tools you have to regulate your own nervous system. Our bodies have two primary operating modes. The first is the sympathetic nervous system, our gas pedal. This is our fight or flight response, designed for survival. It floods our body with adrenaline and cortisol, quickens our heart rate, and tenses our muscles, preparing us to face a real threat. The second is the parasympathetic nervous system, our brake pedal. This is our rest and digest system. It promotes calm, lowers the heart rate, aids digestion, and allows the body to heal and repair itself. The problem with modern life is that the gas pedal is stuck on. The constant pressure, the digital notifications, the endless to-do lists. Our brains interpret these as constant, low-level threats, keeping us in a chronic state of fight or flight. This is why we feel so exhausted, anxious, and burnt out. Slow, deep, abdominal breathing is the most direct and effective way to consciously apply the brake. When you breathe deeply into your belly, you stimulate a crucial nerve called the vagus nerve. This nerve runs from your brain down through your entire torso, and it is the main commander of the parasympathetic nervous system. Stimulating it sends a powerful message to your entire being. The threat is gone. You are safe. You can stand down. This is not just a placebo effect. It is a verifiable biological mechanism. You have, within your own body, the power to shift your state from anxiety to calm, simply by befriending your breath. So the breath is our anchor to the present moment. It is the bridge between mind and body. It is a tool for cultivating gentle, loving presence. And it is our biological key to a state of calm and safety. Now that we have this anchor, we are no longer so easily lost at sea. With the rope of the breath held firmly but gently in our hands, we are now equipped to venture into the inner landscape with courage and curiosity. We have a home base to return to. And where shall we direct the light of our attention first? We will turn it toward the very vessel that carries us through this life. The house of our being, the living storehouse of all our history, tension, joy, and sorrow. We will learn to return home, to the body, using the breath as our constant guide. Let us begin this journey of rediscovery, of listening to the forgotten wisdom held in our very own cells. With the breath as our steadfast anchor, we have found a place of stability on the riverbank. We are now able to watch the flow of thoughts without being swept away. From this newfound ground of being, we can begin a gentle exploration, and our first journey is a homecoming. We will turn the soft light of our awareness toward the very place we have lived our entire lives, yet so often treat as a stranger, our own body. For most of us, the body is simply a vehicle, a machine we use to carry our brains from one task to the next. We feed it when it screams with hunger. We let it sleep when it collapses from exhaustion. And we pay attention to it only when it breaks down in pain or illness. We live in the penthouse of our minds, disconnected from the foundational wisdom of the house itself. This practice is an invitation to come downstairs, to walk through every room of your home, and to become intimately familiar with the life that is pulsing within you. It is an act of returning. Your body is a vessel of profound truth. While the mind can forget rationalize, deny, and deceive, the body keeps an honest record. It is the living manuscript of your entire life story. Every joy you have ever felt, every fear you have ever suppressed, every moment of love and every moment of grief is held within your tissues, your muscles, and your nervous system. The phrase, "the body keeps the score," is a deep and literal truth. The persistent tightness in your shoulders may be the physical residue of burdens you have carried for years. The knot in your stomach may be the lingering energy of an old fear. The clenching in your jaw may be the echo of unspoken anger. We physically embody our emotional history. We walk around inside a living museum of our past, yet we rarely take the time to look at the exhibits. By bringing gentle, non-judgmental awareness to the body, we are not trying to fix or change anything. We are simply beginning to listen. We are learning to read the subtle language of our own being, a language that speaks not in words, but in sensations. Think of yourself as a wise and loving gardener, and your body as the garden you have been given to tend. A careless gardener might just spray water indiscriminately, ignoring the unique needs of each plant. But a wise gardener develops an intimate relationship with their garden. They walk through it daily. They bend down to feel the soil around the roses. They gently remove a withered leaf from the fern. They notice that the sunflowers need more light and the hydrangeas need more shade. They listen to the silent needs of each and every plant, offering their caring attention. The practice of the body scan is how we become this wise gardener. We embark on a slow, deliberate tour of our own inner garden, offering the sunshine of our awareness to every part without preference or judgment. We are not looking for anything in particular. We are simply showing up with kindness to get to know ourselves on this most fundamental level. Let us begin this practice together now. If you can, find a comfortable position lying down on your back, on a bed or a mat on the floor. If that is not possible, sitting comfortably is also perfect. Allow your eyes to gently close. Take a few slow, deep breaths, and with each out-breath, feel a little more of your weight sinking down, supported by the surface beneath you. Let the breath be your anchor, a steady rhythm in the background. Now, bring your attention, like a soft beam of light, all the way down to your feet. Become aware of your left foot. Gently focus on the toes of your left foot. You don't have to visualize them, just feel them from the inside. Notice whatever sensations are present. You might feel a sense of warmth or coolness or a tingling sensation. You might feel the contact with a sock or the air. You might feel nothing at all. Whatever you experience is perfectly fine. There is no goal to achieve. You are simply bringing a kind awareness to this part of your body. Now, allow your attention to expand, to include the sole of your left foot, the heel, the top of the foot. Just feeling, just noticing. Gently let this beam of awareness travel up to your left ankle, your lower leg, your shin, and your calf muscle. As your attention rests on each part, perhaps you can imagine your breath flowing into that area. Breathing in, you bring fresh oxygen and energy. Breathing out, you release any tension that might be held there. Continue this gentle journey up to your knee, and then into the large muscles of your left thigh, front and back. Then, bring your awareness to your entire left leg, from the tips of the toes to the top of the thigh, feeling it, accepting it, just as it is. Now, shift your focus across to your right foot, and begin the same slow, patient journey. Bring your kind attention to the toes of your right foot, feeling, noticing, then the sole of the foot, the heel, the top, journeying up to the ankle, the lower leg, the knee, the thigh, becoming aware of your entire right leg, feeling both legs now, side by side, heavy, relaxed, and alive. Let your awareness now move into the pelvic region, your hips, your buttocks, your groin. This is an area where we often hold a great deal of tension. Just notice what is here with gentle acceptance. Then, bring your attention to your lower back. This is another common storehouse for stress. Be especially kind here. If you feel tightness, simply acknowledge it. There is tightness here. Then let your awareness travel slowly up your spine, vertebra by vertebra, noticing the muscles on either side. Move your focus around to your abdomen, your belly. Feel its soft, gentle rise on the in-breath and its fall on the out-breath. Notice any gurgling or sensations within. This is the center of your body, a place of deep feeling. Be with it for a few moments. Now, expand your awareness to your chest. Feel the movement of your ribs as you breathe. Feel your heart beating steadily in its center, a faithful drum that has played for you your entire life. Just rest in this awareness of your living, breathing torso. Now, bring your attention to your hands. Become aware of your left hand. Notice the fingers, the palm, the back of the hand. Feel the life and energy there. Then let your awareness travel up your left arm, past the wrist, the forearm, the elbow, the upper arm, all the way to your shoulder. Then, shift your attention to your right hand and begin the same journey. The fingers, the palm, the wrist, the forearm, the elbow, the upper arm, the shoulder. Feel both arms now, resting by your sides. Notice your shoulders. Are they tense? Are they relaxed? Can you let them soften just a little bit more on the next out-breath? Then, move your awareness to your neck, another place we hold so much tension. Gently notice the front, the back, and the sides of your neck. Finally, bring your awareness to your head. Feel the back of your head resting on the surface. Notice your jaw. Is it clenched? Can you allow a little space between your upper and lower teeth? Notice your tongue, your lips, your cheeks. Notice the tiny muscles around your eyes. Can you let them be soft? Notice your forehead. Is it smooth and relaxed? And finally, notice your entire scalp. Now, for a few moments, be aware of your entire body, from the tips of your toes to the top of your head, as one single field of sensation, pulsing gently with the rhythm of the breath. You are home. This practice of listening to the body is a profound form of preventative care. The aches and tensions we notice during a body scan are the body's whispers. They are its gentle way of telling us that something is out of balance, that we are holding on to something, that we need to rest or move in a different way. If we ignore these whispers, if we continue to live in our heads and treat the body as a machine, the body will be forced to speak louder. The whispers become murmurs, then shouts, and finally, they can become screams in the form of chronic pain, injury, or illness. The body scan is the practice of learning to listen so acutely that we can hear the very first whispers. It is a way of honoring the incredible intelligence of our physical being and responding to its needs with kindness and care, long before it is forced to scream for our attention. As you become more familiar with this practice, you may notice something interesting. As you rest your attention on a certain part of the body, a feeling might arise that seems unrelated to a physical sensation. You might focus on the tightness in your chest and suddenly feel a wave of sadness. You may notice a knot in your stomach, and an old fear may surface in your mind. This is because the body does not just speak the language of physical sensation. It also speaks the ancient, powerful language of emotion. The tensions we hold are often the physical anchors of unfelt feelings. So what do we do when this happens? What do we do when our journey home to the body leads us directly into the heart of an emotional storm? How can we meet these powerful energies with the same gentle awareness we offered to our physical selves? This is our next vital exploration. In our gentle exploration of the body, our living home, we have discovered that it is not a silent place. It speaks a language of sensation, and often it speaks the language of emotion. As we rest our awareness in a tight chest, a wave of sadness may arise. As we notice a knot in our stomach, the energy of fear may begin to stir. Our culture has taught us very specific ways to deal with these so-called negative emotions. We are taught to fight them, to suppress them, to push them down into the basement of our consciousness and lock the door. We are taught to distract ourselves with work, with entertainment, with food, with anything that will keep us from having to feel the raw energy of our own anger, grief, or fear. Or we do the opposite. We become completely possessed by the emotion, allowing it to dictate our every word and action, becoming the storm itself. There is a third way, a path that is not of resistance, nor of blind indulgence. It is the path of gentle acceptance, of courageous presence. It is the path of learning to stay, of turning towards the storm not with a sword, but with an open heart. The first step on this path is a radical reframing of what an emotion actually is. We have been conditioned to label our inner experiences, to put them into boxes labeled good or bad. Joy is good, peace is good, anger is bad, fear is bad, sadness is bad. But in their essence, emotions are none of these things. They are simply energy. The very word, emotion, can be understood as energy in motion, emotion. It is a wave of pure energetic information moving through your nervous system. Anger has a fiery, expansive quality. Fear has a cold, contracting quality. Grief feels heavy, like water. This energy itself is not the problem. The suffering we experience does not come from the energy itself. It comes from our reaction to it. It comes from our attempt to build a dam to stop the river of feeling from flowing. When we resist an emotion, when we say I should not be feeling this, we are creating an immense amount of inner friction and tension. The energy, denied its natural expression, becomes stuck. It festers. It turns into the chronic anxiety, the simmering resentment, the nameless depression that haunts so many of us. There is a profound psychological truth that says, what you resist persists. The more you fight a feeling, the more power you give it. Imagine trying to hold a large beach ball underwater. It takes a tremendous amount of effort and constant pressure. You have to remain vigilant, constantly pushing it down. It is exhausting. And the moment your focus wavers, the moment you relax your grip, the ball doesn't just surface. It explodes out of the water with far greater force than if you had simply let it float in the first place. This is precisely what we do with our difficult emotions. We spend our lives trying to hold them down, and we wonder why we are so tired. We wonder why they keep erupting in unexpected and destructive ways. The practice of mindfulness offers a revolutionary alternative. Let the beach ball float. Let the emotion be there. Give it space. Drop the rope in the tug of war. This is not an act of weakness. It is an act of profound wisdom and courage. It is the realization that the only way out is through. The great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh offered a beautiful and powerful analogy for this practice. He said we should learn to care for our anger as a mother cares for her crying child. Imagine a mother hearing her infant cry. A compassionate mother does not get angry at the child. She does not shout, "Be quiet." She does not lock the child in another room and pretend not to hear it. She goes to her child, lifts it into her arms, and holds it tenderly. She embraces her baby. Her loving embrace does not necessarily stop the crying immediately, but it creates a field of safety, warmth, and acceptance. She is telling the child, with her body and her presence, "I am here for you. I hear your pain. I will not abandon you." Within this loving embrace, the child is able to feel its distress fully, and eventually, the crying subsides. He taught that we must become this mother for ourselves. Our anger, our fear, our sorrow, these are our crying babies. Our practice is to learn to hear their cries, to turn toward them, and to pick them up with immense tenderness. We embrace our anger, we hold our fear, we cradle our grief, We don't have to analyze it or even understand it at first. The first step is to simply hold it, to be present with it, and to whisper to that wounded part of ourselves, I am here, I am listening, I will not leave you. To make this practice more concrete, mindfulness teacher Tara Brach developed a powerful and elegant framework called RAIN. RAIN is an acronym for a 4-step process that we can use whenever we are caught in the grip of a difficult emotion. It is a way to practice being the loving mother to our inner child. The R stands for recognize. This is the first crucial step of waking up. It's the moment we acknowledge what is actually happening inside us. Instead of being lost in the story of the emotion, we simply name it. We can say to ourselves gently, this is anger, or sadness is here, or I'm feeling fear. This simple act of recognition creates a small gap of awareness. It pulls us out of the torrential current of the emotion and places us back on the riverbank as the witness. The A stands for allow. This is the radical step of letting the feeling be. It is the practice of dropping the inner resistance. We give the emotion permission to exist. We let the beach ball float. You might place a hand on your heart and say to yourself, this is allowed to be here, or simply yes. This does not mean you approve of the feeling or want it to stay forever. It certainly does not mean you should act out the feeling in a harmful way. It is simply an inner surrender, an end to the war against your own experience. You are allowing the energy to be what it is, without judgment. The I stands for investigate. This is not a mental analysis of why you are feeling this way. It is an embodied investigation, a gentle, curious turning towards the felt sense of the emotion. You ask yourself simple questions with the curiosity of a kind scientist. What does this actually feel like in my body? Where do I feel it most strongly? In my chest, my stomach, my throat? Is the sensation hot or cold? Is it vibrating or is it heavy and numb? Is it contracting or expanding? You are getting to know the emotion on its own terms, as a physical, energetic reality, separate from the story your mind is telling about it. You might also ask, what does this vulnerable part of me believe? Or what does this feeling want from me? Listen for the answers not in words, but in the deeper knowing of your body. Finally, the N stands for nurture. After you have recognized, allowed, and investigated the emotion, you offer yourself what you most need. You become the loving mother. This is an act of active self-compassion. Nurturing can take many forms. It might be placing both hands on your heart and feeling their warmth. It might be silently whispering kind words to yourself, such as, I'm so sorry this is so painful, or, it's okay, sweetheart, I'm here, or I love you and I will stay with you. You are offering the suffering part of yourself the kindness and reassurance it has always longed for. You are providing the safe embrace for the crying child within. Through the practice of RAIN, we fundamentally transform our relationship with our inner life. The emotion is no longer an enemy to be vanquished or a tyrant who controls us. It becomes an object of our awareness, a visitor we can greet with kindness and curiosity. We are no longer possessed by the anger. We are the loving awareness that is holding and caring for the anger. We are the sky, and the storm of emotion is just a weather pattern passing through. We can have compassion for the intensity of the storm. We can feel its rain and wind, but we never forget that we are the vast, open sky, untouched and unchanged. This practice takes courage. It is easier in the short term to distract or numb ourselves, but every time you turn towards your inner experience with this gentle acceptance, you are healing yourself on the deepest level. You are dissolving the knots of old pain and reclaiming the lost parts of yourself. As we become more practiced in meeting our emotions in this way, we may start to notice patterns. We may see that certain situations reliably trigger the same storms of feeling inside us. A feeling of not being seen might trigger deep sadness. A A sense of being controlled might ignite a powerful rage. A moment of uncertainty might unleash a torrent of fear. This naturally leads to a deeper question. Where do these intense, recurring emotional reactions come from? Why are we so easily hooked? The wisdom of the Buddha points us toward a fundamental cause, a set of invisible threads that pull at our hearts and minds, binding us to suffering. These are the threads of clinging, of grasping, of craving. They are the threads of attachment. Our next step is to bring the light of our awareness to these threads, to understand how they are woven, and to learn how we can gently, lovingly set ourselves free. As we learn to sit with the storms of our emotions, we begin to see the patterns. We notice how a single word can ignite a forest fire of anger, how a small uncertainty can unleash a flood of fear. This leads us to a deeper inquiry. Why are we so easily hooked? What is the root system that nourishes this recurring emotional turmoil? The wisdom of the great contemplative traditions points to a single powerful source. It is a force so deeply embedded in our human experience that we rarely ever question it. This force is known as attachment, or in the ancient Pali language of the Buddha, upadana. The word upadana is more active than simple attachment. It means clinging, grasping, or taking sustenance from. It is the invisible, energetic threads that our minds extend outward, wrapping themselves around people, possessions, ideas, and outcomes, declaring, "This is me, this is mine. I need this to be happy." The suffering arises not when these things change or disappear, as all things eventually do, but when the threads of our clinging are stretched, threatened, or broken. This is one of the most vital distinctions we can ever make on the path to inner peace. We do not suffer because of the events in our lives. We suffer because of our attachment to how we think those events should be. Imagine you have a simple, beautiful teacup. You enjoy drinking from it each morning. You appreciate its form and color, but you understand that it is made of clay. It is fragile, and one day it will break. When that day comes and the cup slips from your hand and shatters on the floor, you might feel a brief moment of disappointment, but you sweep up the pieces and move on. Now imagine another person with the exact same teacup, but for this person, it is my most precious cup. Their sense of comfort, their morning ritual, their very happiness has become fused with this object. When this cup breaks, their experience is not one of mild disappointment. It is one of genuine suffering. They feel that something of themselves has been shattered. The event was identical a broken cup, but the inner experience was vastly different. The suffering came not from the broken ceramic, but from the broken attachment. It came from the grasping mind. There is a classic story from India that illustrates this perfectly. It is the story of how to catch a monkey. A hunter drills a small hole in a coconut, just large enough for a monkey's open hand to slip through. He then puts some rice inside and chains the coconut to a tree. A monkey, curious and hungry, comes along. It smells the rice, slips its slender hand into the coconut, and grasps a fistful of the prize. But now it has a problem. The hole is too small for its clenched fist to pass back through. It is trapped. The monkey pulls and screeches, growing more and more frantic, but it cannot get free. The hunters approach. The monkey can see them coming. It could be free in a single instant. All it needs to do is the one thing it cannot bring itself to do: open its hand, let go of the rice, and slip its hand out. But its desire, its clinging, its attachment to that handful of rice is so powerful that it will sacrifice its own freedom and ultimately its life rather than let go. We listen to this story and we think, what a foolish monkey. But we are that monkey. The coconut is our world of conditions. The rice is everything we cling to for happiness and security. Our clenched fist is our grasping mind, and our suffering is the trap, a trap entirely of our own making, a trap from which we can be freed the very instant we are willing to open our hand. The teachings of Buddhism identify 4 primary types of rice that we clench in our fists, 4 main categories of upadana. The first is the most obvious, clinging to sense pleasures. This is the endless chase for pleasant sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and physical feelings. It is the addiction to comfort, the craving for the next delicious meal, the next hit of entertainment, the next moment of sensual gratification. The problem is not pleasure itself, which is a natural part of life. The problem is the desperate clinging, the belief that our happiness depends on orchestrating an endless sequence of pleasant experiences, which is an impossible task in a constantly changing world. The second is clinging to views and opinions. This is the attachment to being right. It is the iron grip we have on our political beliefs, our religious dogmas, our personal philosophies, and our stories about how the world works. We fuse our very identity with our opinions. When someone challenges our views, it feels like a personal attack, an assault on our very being. This form of clinging is the source of all fundamentalism, argumentativeness, and division. It closes our minds, hardens our hearts, and prevents us from listening to one another. The third is clinging to rites and rituals. This is the belief that certain external actions or observances will, by themselves, lead to freedom. In a traditional sense, this meant believing that performing a specific ceremony would purify you without any genuine inner transformation. In a modern context, it could be a rigid attachment to a particular diet, a specific style of yoga, a certain meditation technique, or even a therapeutic modality, believing it is the one true way. We become attached to the form, the letter of the law, and we lose the spirit, the underlying principle of wisdom and compassion. The fourth, and most profound, is clinging to a doctrine of a self. This is the root attachment from which all others grow. It is the deep, instinctual, and largely unexamined belief that there is a solid, separate, continuous me at the center of our experience. It is the clinging to our personality, our history, our self-image as a successful person, a victim, a spiritual person, or any other label. It is this perceived self that feels the need to acquire pleasure, to be right, and to perform rituals. This grasping at a phantom self is the fundamental act of clenching our fist. To truly open the hand is to see through the illusion of this separate self. When we live with a clenched fist, our natural state is one of fear and anxiety. If you are attached to something you currently possess, your youth, your health, a relationship, your wealth, you live in a constant, low-grade fear of losing it. You are always guarding it, protecting it, worrying about its inevitable decay. If you are attached to something you do not possess, a promotion, a romantic partner, a different life circumstance, you live in a state of constant, restless anxiety and craving. Whether you have the object of your attachment or not, the attachment itself guarantees a state of non-peace. It is a perfect formula for perpetual dissatisfaction. It is crucial to understand that letting go is not the same as indifference or apathy. This is a common and unhelpful misunderstanding. Indifference is cold. It is a form of aversion, of pushing the world away. It says, "I don't care." Letting go is warm. It is an act of radical acceptance. It says, "I care deeply, but I will not try to control you." It is the difference between trying to capture a butterfly and hold it in your clenched fist, which will only crush its wings, and holding out your open palm, allowing the butterfly to rest there for a moment and to fly away when it is ready, without trying to possess it. You can still love with your whole being, work with passion and dedication, and marvel at the beauty of the world. But you do it with an open hand. You engage with life fully, but without the desperate, fearful need for it to be any different than it is. This is the heart of true freedom. It is learning to love the world without needing to own it. It is learning to unclench your fist, to let go of the rice, and to walk away from the trap, free. The grasping mind, however, has its favorite objects of attachment. It clings most desperately to the stories of yesterday and the fantasies of tomorrow. Our attachment to the pasto, our wounds and our glories, our regrets and our triumphs is one of the heaviest anchors we carry, keeping us from living fully in the present. It is a bag of ashes that we carry on our back, insisting it is a treasure. Our next step on this journey is to turn and look directly at this bag of ashes, to understand our attachment to it, and to learn how we might finally, gently, set it down. We have seen how the grasping mind, the clenched fist of the monkey, is the source of our suffering. We cling to pleasure, to views, to rituals, and to the very idea of ourselves. Now, we will turn the light of our awareness to one of the heaviest and most cherished treasures in the monkey's fist: the past, our history, our story. For so many of us, the past is not a place we once lived. It is a place we still inhabit. We walk through the present moment, but our minds are lost in the ghostly landscapes of yesterday. We carry our past on our backs like a heavy sack filled with stones. The sharp-edged stones of regret, the heavy boulders of grievance, the strangely comforting, smooth stones of nostalgia. We arrange and rearrange them. We polish them with our thoughts. We tell ourselves their stories over and over. And we wonder why we are so tired, why we cannot walk freely in the landscape that is right in front of us. The first, most liberating truth we must embrace is this: the past does not exist. This may sound shocking, but feel it for a moment. Where is yesterday? Can you find it anywhere outside of the electrical and chemical pathways of your own brain? The event you are regretting is over. The words that were said are gone, vanished into the silent air. The person who hurt you may be miles away, or may not even be the same person anymore. The only thing that is real right now is your thinking about the past. The past itself is a phantom, a memory trace. Yet we give this phantom the power to poison the present moment. It is like being wounded once by an arrow, and then, for the rest of our lives, taking that same arrow and stabbing ourselves with it again and again, every single day. The original wound is long gone. The pain we feel now is entirely self-inflicted, created by our own mind's relentless clinging to a ghost. The freedom we seek is not about changing the past, which is impossible. It is about changing our relationship to it in the present. It is about having the courage to finally pull the arrow out. There is a timeless Zen story that illuminates this with perfect clarity. Two monks, one senior and one junior, were on a long pilgrimage. Their journey took them to the bank of a river with a swift current. A beautiful young woman stood there, dressed in fine silks, looking distressed. She was afraid to cross the river alone, fearing she would be swept away and ruin her clothes. The junior monk, a very strict adherent to their monastic code, averted his eyes. Their vows clearly forbade them from touching a woman, but the senior monk, without a moment's hesitation, walked over to the woman, lifted her onto his back, and carried her through the churning water to the other side. He gently set her down. She thanked him profusely, and he simply nodded and continued on his journey. The junior monk was speechless with outrage. He followed his master, his mind a storm of judgment. For hours, he walked in fuming silence, replaying the scene in his mind, rehearsing his condemnation. How could his master have been so brazen? How could he have broken their most sacred vows? Finally, miles down the road, as evening began to approach, the junior monk could contain his anger no longer. He rushed ahead of his master and blurted out, "Master, I must ask you, how could you do that back there? Our vows are sacred. You touched that woman, you carried her. It was a terrible transgression." The senior monk looked at his young companion, his eyes filled not with defensiveness, but with a gentle compassion. He smiled softly and said, "I set that woman down by the river hours ago. Why are you still carrying her? This story is a mirror for our own minds. We are all the junior monk. An event happens, an insult is spoken, a mistake is made, and it is over in a moment. But we, in our minds, refuse to set it down. We carry the person, the words, the memory with us for hours, for days, for years. We allow the dead weight of yesterday to poison the vitality of today. The most profound question you can ask yourself when you find yourself lost in a painful memory is the old monk's question. I set that down long ago. Why am I still carrying it? A large part of this burden we carry is made of grievances, the wrongs that have been done to us, the pain others have inflicted, and we believe that by holding on to our anger and resentment, we are somehow punishing the other person. But it is a terrible illusion. Holding on to resentment is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. It is like drinking a cup of poison and waiting for the other person to die. The bitterness, the anger, the vengeful thoughts, they do not harm the other person, who is likely living their own life, oblivious. They corrode your heart. They consume your precious energy. This is why the practice of forgiveness is not a gift to the other person. It is an act of profound self-liberation. Forgiveness does not mean you are condoning what they did. It does not mean you have to forget it, or reconcile with them, or even tell them they are forgiven. It is an internal act. It is the personal, courageous decision to unclench your own fist. It is the choice to drop the hot coal, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve to be free from the pain of being burned. It is you, finally, setting the burden down. Of course, the mind will argue. It will say, but if I let go of the past, I will forget its lessons. I will be doomed to repeat my mistakes. This is a legitimate fear, but it comes from a misunderstanding. There is a vast difference between learning from the past and being imprisoned by it. Imagine you are a blacksmith and you have a piece of raw, unrefined ore. The ore is a past mistake. You can put it in the fire, heat it, hammer it, and refine it until you've extracted a small, strong piece of pure steel. That steel is the lesson, the wisdom gained from the experience. The tons of useless rock and slag that are left over are the emotional burdens, the shame, the guilt, the regret. Learning from the past means you keep the steel and use it to build something new and stronger. Clinging to the past means you insist on carrying all the worthless slag around with you forever. The weight of the slag does not help you, it only slows you down. We must learn to become wise blacksmiths of our own experience. Extract the wisdom, integrate the lesson, and let the rest of the emotional baggage go. Carry the lesson, but drop the burden. Ultimately, letting go of the past is an act of embracing the infinite potential of the present moment. The entire chain of events of your life, with all its triumphs and disasters, has led you to precisely one place, right here, right now. This breath you are taking is a completely new beginning. It is a clean slate. You are not defined by the person you were 10 years ago, or last week, or even 1 minute ago, unless you choose to be. The energy you are currently using to replay old grievances and regrets is energy that is being stolen from your aliveness now. When you set the past down, that energy is liberated. It becomes available for you to create, to love, to be present, to make new choices. Every single moment offers you an amnesty from your past. It offers you a chance to be born again. The sun rises every morning, not judging the darkness of the night that came before it. In the same way, every moment is a sunrise for your awareness. You can let the old story die and allow a new one to begin. You can let go of the ashes. Having looked at the phantom of yesterday, our minds will inevitably swing to the other direction of time. If the past is a ghost that haunts us, the future is a siren that lures us. or a monster that threatens us. We have examined the burden of what has been. Now we must turn our attention to the other great weight we carry, the burden of what has not yet come to be. Let us investigate this shimmering, elusive mist we call the future, and see how our attachment to it creates the pervasive anxiety that defines so much of our modern life. We have walked back from the ghostly landscapes of the past, having learned to set down the heavy sack of ashes. We have seen that its power to harm us exists only in our present moment thinking. Now we must turn to face the other phantom that commands our attention, the shimmering, elusive territory we call the future. If the past is a ghost that haunts us with regret, the future is a siren that lures us with hope and terrifies us with anxiety. Our minds, when not dwelling on what has been, are almost always projecting into what might be. We live our lives in a state of constant, forward-leaning tension, our consciousness perpetually inhabiting a time that does not exist. This mental time travel into the what-if is the very definition of anxiety. We are trying to navigate, control, and secure a place that is as formless as mist, and we wonder why we feel so perpetually off balance. The first step to finding our footing is to see the future for what it is, a complete fabrication of the human imagination. A wise person once said that worrying is like paying interest on a debt you may never owe. This is a profoundly accurate description of the energetic cost of anxiety. Worrying feels productive. It feels as if we are doing something, as if we are preparing for or solving a problem. But this is an illusion. Worry is a purely mental activity, a hamster wheel of repetitive, fearful thought that has absolutely no effect on external reality. It is a dress rehearsal for a tragedy that will likely never be staged. Studies have shown that the vast majority of what we worry about never comes to pass. And for the small percentage that does, the act of worrying beforehand does nothing to ease the difficulty. It only means we have put ourselves through the suffering twice. We pay the crippling interest of sleepless nights, a tense body, and a joyless present, all for a debt that is, in most cases, entirely imaginary. We are squandering the gold of the present moment to pay for a fantasy of disaster. This is because the future does not exist. It is a story. The detailed, catastrophic scenario you are currently playing out in your mind, the failed presentation, the difficult conversation, the bad news is, right now, a work of fiction. You are the author, director, and terrified lead actor in a movie that is being produced entirely within your own consciousness. The problem is that our nervous system is not a very discerning audience. It cannot always tell the difference between a vividly imagined threat and a real one. When you immerse your mind in a fantasy of future danger, your body reacts as if the danger were real. Your heart rate increases, your muscles tense, your breathing becomes shallow, your body is flooded with the stress hormones, cortisol, and adrenaline. You are activating your ancient fight-or-flight response to fight a phantom. This is the insanity of anxiety. We are literally tormenting our own bodies and minds with scary stories we are making up ourselves. There is a simple story of a farmer that illustrates this. The farmer was standing one beautiful afternoon in the middle of his field. The young stalks of corn were green and healthy. The sun was warm, and a gentle breeze was blowing. It was a perfect day, but the farmer's face was a mask of torment. His neighbor, a wise old woman, passed by and saw his distress. "Friend," she said, "it is a beautiful day and your crops are thriving. Why do you look so troubled?" The farmer sighed, a heavy, worried sound. "Oh," he said, "I am just thinking about all the things that could go wrong. What if there is a drought and the sun withers my crops? What if a great flood comes and washes them all away? What if a swarm of locusts descends and devours every last leaf? Or what if the harvest is good, but the prices at the market fall, and all my hard work is for nothing?" The old woman listened patiently. When he was finished, she smiled gently and said, It seems to me that you are so busy worrying about all the ways you might lose your crops in the future that you have already lost the one thing you truly possess. This beautiful, perfect, sun-drenched afternoon, we are all this farmer. We sacrifice the guaranteed reality of our present experience for the imagined dread of 1,000 possible futures, none of which are real. Now, letting go of anxiety does not mean abandoning responsibility. It is not a call for passivity or foolishness. This is a crucial distinction to make. There is a vast difference between wise planning and useless worrying. Wise planning is grounded in the present moment. It involves looking clearly at the situation as it is right now, gathering real information, and taking whatever skillful actions are available to you today. You check the weather forecast, you mend the fence, you save some money for a rainy day. Planning is calm, logical, and action-oriented. Its aim is to create the best possible conditions for a favorable outcome. And once you have done all you can do today, you let go. You release your attachment to the result, knowing you have acted with wisdom and diligence. Worrying, on the other hand, is rooted in a fantasy future. It is circular, repetitive, and emotionally charged. It involves obsessing over variables that are completely outside of your control. Its aim is not to take action, but to mentally solve a problem that does not yet exist and may never exist. It is a draining and fruitless exercise in fear. A ship's captain wisely plots a course based on the current charts and weather patterns. He does not spend the voyage cowering in his cabin, imagining every possible rogue wave and iceberg. Be the wise captain of your life, not the terrified passenger. The ultimate antidote to anxiety, the ultimate way to create a good future, is to fully inhabit the present moment. The future is not a fixed destination we are speeding towards. The future is an empty canvas. It is being created, brushstroke by brushstroke, by the quality of your consciousness, right here, right now. If you want a future that is more peaceful, the only path is to cultivate peace in this present moment. If your present moment is filled with anxiety, you are planting seeds of anxiety, and the future you harvest will be an anxious one. If your present moment is filled with presence, with kindness, with calm, skillful action, you are planting seeds of peace. You are creating the fertile soil from which a beautiful future can naturally grow. All of your power to shape your life exists in this single point where timeless awareness meets the present moment. Worrying about the future is like trying to steer a car by grabbing the rearview mirror. The only way to guide your life is to place your hands firmly on the wheel of the now. So, when the mind begins its time travel into the misty what-ifs of tomorrow, gently notice what it is doing. Acknowledge the fear. The mind is writing a scary story again. Then bring your attention back to your anchor. Feel your breath. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel the life in your body right now. Remind yourself that in this present moment, you are okay. The imagined disaster is not happening. You are here. You are breathing. You are alive. This is the only reality. And it is from this grounded, present reality that all wise action and all true peace is born. We have now journeyed through the phantom lands of the past and the future. We have seen how our clinging to what was and our anxiety about what might be are the twin sources of so much of our suffering, but both of these are fueled by a central character, a protagonist who is always at the center of the story, the me who regrets, the I who worries. This persistent sense of a separate, vulnerable self is the ultimate object of our attachment. Who is this fragile I that we spend our lives trying to protect and promote? Our next step is to turn the light of awareness onto this main character, the ego itself, and to explore the possibility of a freedom that is even deeper than freedom from past and future. We have journeyed together through the ghostly corridors of the past and the misty plains of the future. We have seen how our attachment to what was creates regret, and how our attachment to what might be creates anxiety. But now we must ask a more fundamental question. Who is this I that regrets? Who is this me that worries? At the very center of every story of suffering, there is a protagonist, a character we have spent our entire lives creating, polishing, defending, and promoting. This character is our self-image, our personality, what we call our ego. We believe this character is the absolute truth of who we are. The teachings of the great wisdom traditions, however, invite us to ask the most radical question of all. Is this character even real? This exploration is not about destroying the ego or treating it as an enemy. It is simply about turning the light of awareness onto this self-image and investigating, with gentle curiosity, what it is actually made of. Let us look closely at this entity you call I. What is it? You might start by saying it is your body, but your body is in a constant state of flux. Its cells are dying and being replaced. The body you have today is not the same body you had 7 years ago. You might say the I is your mind, your thoughts. But as we have already seen, thoughts are like clouds, constantly appearing and disappearing. They are not solid or permanent. So what is left? Perhaps you would say your I is your collection of memories. But memory is notoriously selective and unreliable, a heavily edited story of the past, not an objective record. Maybe your I is your job, your role as a parent or a child, your nationality. But all of these are temporary roles, costumes we wear that change with the circumstances of our lives. The truth is, when you look for a solid, continuous, independent self that exists apart from all these changing components, you cannot find one. The ego, the self-image we hold so dear, is a construct. It is a bundle of memories, beliefs, sensations, and social roles, all stitched together by the thread of language into a story. It is a useful convention for navigating the world, but it is not the fundamental truth of your being. In Buddhism, this profound insight is called anatta, often translated as no self. This does not mean that you do not exist. It means you do not exist as the separate, fixed, unchanging entity you imagine yourself to be. You are not the static noun of a personality. You are the dynamic verb of being. This attachment to a fixed idea of me and mine is the primary source of our deepest suffering. When we believe we are a small, separate self, we live in a state of perpetual insecurity, and from this insecurity, a host of poisons arise. We engage in constant comparison. We measure our constructed self against other constructed selves, leading to the vacillation between pride and shame, superiority and inferiority. We feel envy when another self has something that we believe would enhance our own self. We are terrified of criticism, failure, or rejection because we mistake an attack on our performance or our ideas as an attack on our very being. Defensiveness, argumentativeness, and the desperate need to be right are the ego's immune system, trying to protect a phantom from a perceived threat. We also become trapped in the prison of our own self-image. If we have constructed an identity as a strong person, we feel we are not allowed to be vulnerable. If we see ourselves as an intellectual, we may be afraid to be silly or creative. We are forced to be consistent with a character we ourselves have invented, which robs us of our spontaneity and freedom. A beautiful way to understand this is to think of yourself not as a character in a play, but as the actor who plays all the parts. Imagine a truly brilliant master actor. One night she can play a powerful queen, radiating authority and arrogance. The next night she can play a humble street sweeper, full of quiet dignity and sorrow. The audience is completely captivated. They believe in the reality of the queen, and they believe in the reality of the street sweeper. But the actor's genius lies in one crucial fact. She never forgets that she is the actor. She fully inhabits the role. She feels the character's emotions. She speaks their words, but a part of her awareness remains separate, knowing that it is all a performance. At the end of the night, she takes off the costume and the makeup, and she goes home. She does not carry the queen's pride or the sweeper's despair with her. They were temporary expressions of her craft. The wisdom of anatta is the realization that we are all this actor, the pure, spacious awareness. And the personality, the me we take so seriously, is just one role we have been playing for a very long time. We have become method actors who are so lost in our one part that we have forgotten our true identity as the artist. The invitation is not to kill the character, but to simply remember that it is a role. This remembrance is liberation. When you begin to let go of the desperate need to be somebody important, somebody successful, somebody spiritual, somebody who has it all figured out, you discover a profound freedom. It is the freedom of being a nobody. This does not mean you become worthless. On the contrary, you become everything. You are no longer confined to the small, brittle box of your personality. You are free to respond to life authentically in each moment, rather than from the pre-written script of your self-image. You can be strong in one moment and vulnerable in the next. You can be wise and you can be foolish. You can be serious and you can be playful. Letting go of your self-image is not an act of self-destruction. It is an act of infinite expansion. It is like being water, which has no fixed shape of its own, and can therefore take the shape of any container. You shed the rigid armor that you thought was protecting you, only to realize it was a cage. You can explore this directly through a simple inquiry. The next time a strong thought arises that is centered on the I, such as I am a failure, or I am so anxious, or I need to be respected, pause for a moment. Gently ask yourself, who is this I that is feeling this? Where is it? Look for it in your body. Can you find a specific location for this I? Is it in your head? Your chest? Is it a thought? Is it a feeling? Is it a sensation? As you look for it, do not try to find an answer. The purpose of the inquiry is to see for yourself that this solid I you assume is there is actually unfindable. It is like looking for the core of an onion. You peel away layer after layer of thought, feeling, and sensation, but when you get to the center, there is nothing there. There is only the peeling, there is only the process. The I is a ghost that vanishes under the light of direct investigation. What is left when the ghost dissolves is not a void, but a sense of open, spacious, simple awareness. When we begin to see through the illusion of the separate self, a remarkable thing happens. The solid walls that we believed existed between me and you, between me and the world, begin to become transparent. The sense of being an isolated fragment in a hostile or indifferent universe begins to dissolve. If I am not this small, lonely ego, then what am I? We start to sense that we are not a noun but a verb. We are not a separate thing but a process, a happening, deeply interwoven with everything else. The feeling of separation gives way to a dawning sense of profound interconnection. This is the natural consequence of letting the ego relax its grip. It is the understanding that we are not a lonely drop of water, but a wave in the single vast ocean of existence. Our next exploration will be to dive into this ocean, to explore this intricate, beautiful web of connection, and to see how everything, including our own being, arises in relationship to everything else. In our last reflection, we turned the light of awareness onto the very center of our universe, the I. We looked for a solid, separate, unchanging self and found that it was like the core of an onion, a construct of shifting layers with no solid center. This can feel unsettling at first, like the ground is disappearing from beneath our feet. But what if this disappearance of the ground reveals that we have had wings all along? When the illusion of the separate self begins to dissolve, it is not replaced by a void of nothingness. It is replaced by a sense of profound and boundless connection. The feeling of being an isolated fragment in the universe gives way to the direct experience of being a living, breathing part of the whole. This is the understanding of interconnectedness, or as it is known in the Buddhist tradition, pratityasamutpada. often translated as dependent origination. The principle is simple yet mind-altering. This is because that is. This is not because that is not. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything arises in dependence upon everything else. To grasp this, let us not start with a grand cosmic theory, but with something utterly simple and ordinary. Imagine you are holding a single sheet of paper in your hand. Look deeply into this piece of paper. Where did it come from? You might say it came from a tree. But the paper is not just the tree. To be here, the tree needed the sun, whose light traveled 93 million miles to nourish it. The tree needed the clouds to provide the rain, and the rain is born of the oceans and the lakes. The tree needed the earth to anchor its roots and provide its minerals. So, in this single sheet of paper, the sun is here, the clouds are here, the rain is here, and the earth is here. But it doesn't stop there. The paper needed a logger to cut down the tree. The logger needed parents to give him life. He needed to eat breakfast, which means he needed a farmer to grow the wheat for his bread. The logger needed the person who made his saw, and the person who mined the ore to create the steel. The paper needed the truck driver who brought the logs to the mill, the workers who operate the machinery, the electricity that powers the factory, which might come from a river or the wind. If you continue to look, you will see that the entire cosmos, in all its vast and intricate detail, is present in this one simple sheet of paper. If you were to remove the sun, the paper could not exist. If you were to remove the clouds, the paper could not exist. If you remove the logger, or the farmer, or the earth, the paper vanishes. The paper, in its essence, is empty of a separate, independent self, but it is full of the entire universe. Now, look at your own hand. Just like the sheet of paper, you are not a separate, self-contained entity. Your physical body is made of the food you have eaten, which is a gift of the sun, the earth, and the rain. The air you are breathing in this very moment has been cycled through the lungs of countless other beings, through the leaves of the great forests. The very oxygen that is fueling your brain right now connects you to the entire planetary ecosystem. The language you think in, the ideas that form your reality, the music that moves your heart, all of these came to you from others, from your culture, your teachers, your ancestors. If you look deeply enough, you will see your parents and grandparents in your face. You will see all the people who have ever shown you kindness or taught you something. You are not an island. You are a nexus point, a temporary and beautiful gathering of all the forces of the universe. The feeling of loneliness or alienation comes only from the illusion that you are separate from this great web of life. The truth is, you are the web. There is a magnificent and ancient metaphor from the Mahayana Buddhist tradition that captures this reality. It is the image of Indra's net. Imagine a vast cosmic net that stretches out infinitely in all directions. It is a web of unfathomable size. At every single node where the threads of the net cross, there hangs a single, perfect, multifaceted jewel. Each jewel is brilliant and clear. But the magic of this net is that if you look closely into the polished surface of any one jewel, you will see reflected in it every other jewel in the entire net. And this is not all. Each of the jewels reflected in that one jewel also contains a reflection of all the other jewels, creating a holographic, infinite regress of interreflection. Each jewel is a microcosm of the whole. Its very identity is nothing more than the sum of all the other reflections. It has no existence on its own. It only exists in relationship to all the others. We are these jewels. Each of us is a unique and precious point in the cosmic web, yet our being is entirely relational. Our existence is defined by the light we receive from and reflect back to every other being. To touch one jewel is to make the entire net shimmer and vibrate. When we begin to feel the truth of this in our bones, our understanding of ourselves and our actions is completely transformed. If we are all part of this single, interconnected net, then the idea of a purely private action becomes an impossibility. Every word we speak, every action we take, every thought we cultivate is a vibration we send out across the entire web. A simple act of kindness, a gentle word, a moment of patient listening is not just a gift to one person. It is a harmonious vibration that ripples outward, touching countless other jewels in ways we will never see. And conversely, an act of harm, a cruel word, a selfish deed sends a discordant tremor through the net. This is why harming another being or harming our environment is, in the deepest sense, an act of self-harm. When we pollute a river, we are polluting the water that is reflected in our own jewel. When we cause another to suffer, we are sending out a vibration of suffering that will inevitably find its way back to us. The illusion of separation is the only thing that allows us to believe we can act without consequence. Indra's net reminds us that we are always living in the echo of our own actions. From this profound realization of interconnectedness, compassion arises not as a moral duty, but as a natural, spontaneous, and logical response. When you understand, on a cellular level, that you and I are not truly separate, then your suffering is my suffering, and your joy is my joy. It is as simple and as instinctual as one hand reaching to soothe the other hand when it is in pain. The right hand does not stop and ask, "What is in it for me to help the left hand?" It helps because it knows they are both part of the same body. When our sense of self expands from the small, isolated ego to the vast, interconnected web, our sense of compassion naturally expands with it. We begin to act for the good of the whole, because we understand that the good of the whole is our own good. Empathy becomes not an effort, but a simple recognition of ourselves in another. This intellectual understanding of Indra's net is a powerful pointer. It can dismantle our false sense of separation and open our minds to a more vast and beautiful reality. But the journey does not end with the mind. The ultimate transformation occurs when this understanding drops from the head into the heart, when it becomes a felt reality, a way of being. How do we cultivate this feeling? How do we actively water the seeds of love and compassion that this insight plants within us? We do this by learning to open our hearts intentionally, to radiate goodwill and kindness outward from our own jewel to all the other jewels in the net. This is the practice of metta, or loving kindness. It is the bridge from knowing we are connected to feeling we are connected, and that is where our journey will take us next. We have stood in awe before the vision of Indra's net, the profound truth that all of existence is a single, interconnected web. We have seen with our intellect that the idea of a separate self is an illusion. But to truly live this truth, to embody it, we must allow it to travel from the head to the heart. An intellectual understanding can be inspiring, but it is a felt, embodied experience that truly transforms us. The practice that bridges this gap, that allows us to feel the shimmering reality of Indra's net in our own being, is called metta bhavana in the Pali language. This translates as the cultivation, the development of loving kindness. Metta is not the sentimental, possessive love of romantic stories. It is not a fleeting emotion that depends on whether others please us or not. Metta is a steady, unconditional, universal goodwill. It is the simple, powerful, and courageous wish for all beings, without exception, to be happy and free from harm. It is the practice of learning to radiate warmth from the jewel of our own heart to all the other jewels in the cosmic net. The journey of opening the heart, however, begins in a place that may seem surprising. It does not begin with others. It begins with ourselves. This is the most crucial and often the most difficult step in the entire practice. Our culture has taught many of us to be deeply self-critical. We are experts in noticing our own flaws, replaying our mistakes, and speaking to ourselves with a harshness we would never use on a friend. To try and generate love for others, when our own heart is a landscape of self-judgment, is like trying to pour water from an empty cup. It is not a sustainable or authentic act. To truly love the world, we must first learn to offer that same kindness to ourselves. This is not selfish, it is essential self-care. It is the act of filling our own well so that our kindness may naturally and effortlessly overflow to others. It is recognizing that we too are a precious jewel in Indra's net, worthy of the same warmth and goodwill we would offer to anyone else. Let us try this practice together, in this moment. Find a comfortable posture, and if it feels right, you might place a hand gently over the center of your chest, a simple gesture of warmth and self-acceptance. Close your eyes and take a few soft breaths. Now, bring your own self to mind. See if you can hold an image of yourself with the same tenderness you might hold for a dear friend. And then, silently, gently, begin to offer yourself these phrases, these gifts from your own heart. Let the words be soft, like whispers. May I be safe. A wish for safety from all inner and outer harm, from fear and anxiety. May I be happy. A wish for a deep and abiding happiness, the happiness of a peaceful heart. May I be healthy. A wish for health in body, in mind, in spirit. May I live with ease. A wish for freedom from struggle, for a life lived with grace and peace. Repeat these phrases slowly, letting them settle in your heart. You do not need to force any particular feeling. The words themselves are the offering. The gentle repetition of the intention is the practice. Some days you may feel a warmth spread through your chest. Other days you may feel nothing but the harsh voice of the inner critic saying, "I don't deserve this." If that voice arises, see if you can be kind even to that part of you. You can say, "I hear you. I know you're trying to protect me, but I am going to offer myself this kindness anyway." The practice is not about feeling good. It is about being kind, especially when it is difficult. You are planting seeds in the soil of your own heart. With patient watering, they will grow. Once you have spent some time offering this kindness to yourself, allowing your own cup to be at least partially filled, you can begin to expand the circle of your heart. First, bring to mind a benefactor, a loved one, or a dear friend. Choose someone for whom you feel an easy, uncomplicated affection. It could be a teacher, a parent, a partner, or even a beloved pet. Hold them in your heart. Picture them smiling and happy, and then offer them the same phrases. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Feel the natural warmth that flows from your heart when you wish for the well-being of someone you care for. Let this feeling grow. Let it fill you. This is the energy of metta. Next, you can expand the circle to include a neutral person. This might be a cashier at a store you frequent, a neighbor you see but don't know well, someone who sits across from you on the bus. This is a person for whom you feel neither like nor dislike. Bring their face to mind. Recognize their simple humanity, that they, just like you, wish to be happy, and offer them the same phrases. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. This stage is powerful because it begins to dissolve the walls of indifference we build around ourselves. It helps us to see every person not as an extra in our own movie, but as the protagonist of their own, equally important life story. Then, only when you feel ready, and with great care for your own heart, you can try to expand the circle to include a difficult person. This is someone with whom you have conflict or tension. The practice here is not to condone their harmful actions or to force a reconciliation. It is a practice for your own freedom. It is the recognition that this person's harmful actions likely come from their own deep suffering and confusion. Clinging to anger towards them only harms you. So, for the sake of your own peace, you can try to offer them a sliver of goodwill. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be free from the suffering that causes you to create suffering. This can be incredibly challenging, and it is a profound act of healing that can untie the knots of resentment in your own heart. Finally, you let the circle expand infinitely. Imagine this warmth, this golden light of metta, radiating out from your heart in all directions, to the front, to the back, to the left, to the right, above and below, to all beings in your city, in your country, on your continent, to all beings on this planet, human and animal, big and small, seen and unseen. May all beings everywhere be safe. May all beings everywhere be happy. May all beings everywhere be healthy. May all beings everywhere live with ease. In this moment, you are fully embodying the truth of Indra's net, actively polishing every jewel with the light of your own benevolent heart. Do not underestimate the power of this practice. Metta is not a passive, sentimental feeling. It is a transformative force. There is a story of the Buddha who was walking in a village when a raging, intoxicated elephant named Nalagiri was let loose with the specific intent to kill him. People screamed and ran in terror. The Buddha's disciples urged him to flee, but the Buddha stood his ground, calm and serene. He did not prepare to fight or defend himself with physical force. Instead, he turned his awareness toward the charging elephant and radiated a powerful, unwavering field of pure metta, pure, unconditional loving kindness. The story says that as the elephant entered this field of loving energy, its rage began to melt away. Its pace slowed, its aggression subsided, and by the time it reached the Buddha, it was completely calm, and it knelt down before him. This story illustrates that loving kindness is a shield and a force. It can disarm the hostility in the world, and more importantly, it can disarm the hostility within our own hearts. It melts the rigid, defensive shell of the ego and allows our true nature, which is open and loving, to shine forth. Every time you practice metta, you are rewiring your brain, creating new pathways for kindness and connection, and making the world, starting with your own heart, a more compassionate place. As we cultivate this warm wish for all beings to be happy, a related quality of the heart naturally begins to stir. It is one thing to wish for a happy being to continue in their happiness. It is another thing to encounter a being who is actively suffering, who is in pain. In that moment, the warm sunshine of metta transforms into the gentle, soothing rain of a different, though deeply related, quality. The wish for them to be happy becomes the active, urgent wish for them to be free from their suffering. This is the heart of compassion, or karuna. And it is to this profound quality of the heart that we will now turn. We have learned to open our hearts with the practice of metta, the radiant sunshine of loving kindness, the wish for all beings to be happy. This is a beautiful and essential foundation. But as we look upon the world, both within ourselves and outside, we cannot deny the reality of pain. We see loneliness, we see fear, we see sickness, we see grief. If our heart is truly open, what is its response when it encounters this suffering? In that moment, the warm sunshine of metta transforms into the gentle, cleansing rain of karuna, or compassion. Compassion is the trembling of the heart in the face of suffering. It is the natural evolution of loving kindness when it meets with pain. The wish, "May you be happy," becomes the active, urgent, and heartfelt aspiration. May you be free from your suffering. It is the heart's yes to being present with pain and its deep desire to help alleviate it. It is vital that we understand what compassion is and what it is not. In our language, we often confuse it with pity, but pity and compassion are worlds apart. Pity looks down from above. It comes from a place of separation, a place of ego. It says, "Oh, you poor, unfortunate thing. I am so glad I am not you." Pity creates distance. It reinforces the hierarchy of the fortunate and the unfortunate, It can feel condescending and disempowering to the one who receives it. Closer to compassion is empathy, the ability to feel with another person. This is a beautiful human capacity, but it also has its dangers. If we are not grounded in awareness, empathy can lead to what is called empathic distress or burnout. We become so overwhelmed by another's pain that we drown in it ourselves. We take on their suffering as our own, and in doing so, we lose our strength and become useless to both them and ourselves. Compassion, true karuna, is a third way. It is a union of the heart's tenderness and the mind's wisdom. It is the ability to feel for another, to be fully present with their pain, but without losing our own center. It is to enter the darkness with another person, not to get lost in it with them, but to hold a lamp. It comes from the profound recognition of non-separation we found in Indra's net. It is the understanding that the suffering of another is not, in fact, separate from our own. Their pain is a vibration in the web of which we are both a part. The desire to help is the web's own natural impulse to restore harmony and balance. It is not about being a good person or a rescuer. It is the most sane and logical response to the reality of our shared existence. It is the left hand instinctively soothing the right hand when it is burned. In the great traditions of the East, the embodiment of this boundless compassion is the figure of the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, a name that means the one who hears the cries of the world. Avalokiteshvara is often depicted with 1,000 arms and 1,000 eyes. The 1,000 eyes are to perceive the countless forms of suffering in every corner of the universe. The 1,000 arms are to reach out with skillful means to offer comfort and aid. This is not a deity to be worshipped from afar, but a magnificent symbol of the potential that lies dormant within every human heart. To practice compassion is to learn to become Avalokiteshvara in our own lives. It is to cultivate the courage to keep our eyes and hearts open to suffering, rather than turning away in fear or indifference. And the first and most powerful of those 1,000 arms is the arm that knows how to truly listen. So often, when we are faced with another person's pain, our first instinct is to try and fix it. We rush in with advice, with solutions, with platitudes and silver linings. We say, "Don't cry," or "Look on the bright side," or "You should try this." While often well-intentioned, this rush to fix is usually more about our own discomfort with sitting in the presence of pain. We want to make their suffering go away so that we can feel more comfortable. One of the most profound acts of compassion is to offer the gift of deep, non-judgmental listening. It is the practice of creating a safe, sacred space where another person can unfold their own experience without fear of being judged, corrected, or fixed. It is listening with your whole being. You listen with your ears to their words. You listen with your eyes to their body language. And you listen with your heart to the feelings that lie beneath the words. You are not listening in order to reply. You are listening in order to understand. You become a calm, silent, accepting presence. In the safety of that presence, the other person can often find their own wisdom and their own path through the pain. To be truly heard is a deeply healing experience, and it is a gift that all of us have the power to offer. A common fear that arises when we speak of opening to suffering is the fear of being consumed by it. If I truly open to all the pain in the world, we think, I will be destroyed. This is where the wisdom aspect of compassion is essential. We must learn to be with suffering without becoming it. Imagine yourself as a great, stable mountain. People can come to the mountain to find shelter from their storms. They can cry their tears and rage against the wind in the mountain's presence. But the mountain does not become the storm. It remains grounded, solid, and present, offering its silent strength as a refuge. In the same way, we can learn to be a compassionate presence for others. We use our breath as our anchor. We feel our feet on the ground. We stay connected to the solid reality of our own body while we listen to another's story. A powerful contemplative practice is to work with the breath. On the in-breath, you can imagine breathing in the other person's suffering, taking it into your strong and spacious heart. And on the out-breath, you can imagine sending them peace, clarity, and healing energy. You are not psychically absorbing their pain. You are transforming it within the compassionate space of your own awareness. You are offering to be a clear, deep well of water for a thirsty person, not a muddy puddle of shared misery. The ultimate expression of karuna, compassion, is action. It is the 1,000 arms of Avalokiteshvara reaching out. After listening deeply, we may be moved to offer practical helper meal, a ride, a helping hand. We act not from a place of egoistic heroism, but from a simple, humble response to a perceived need. Our action is guided by the wisdom that asks, what is truly helpful here? Sometimes the most helpful action is to speak. Sometimes it is to be silent. Sometimes it is to do something practical. And sometimes it is simply to be present, to bear witness, to offer the unshakable companionship of an open heart. This is the tear of the Bodhisattva. It is not a tear of helpless despair. It is a tear of profound empathy that becomes the catalyst for wise and loving action. As we train our hearts to be present with the reality of suffering, both our own and that of others, we complete a vital part of our emotional education. But it is not the whole story. If our hearts break for those who are in pain, what do our hearts do for those who are experiencing joy and success? If we can learn to cry with those who cry, can we also learn to genuinely rejoice with those who rejoice? The opposite of compassion's sorrow is not indifference, but a radiant and selfless joy in the good fortune of others. This quality, known as mudita, or sympathetic joy, is the antidote to the poisons of jealousy and envy. It is the next great territory of the heart that we are invited to explore. We have walked through the valley of compassion, learning to keep our hearts open in the presence of suffering. We have learned to be the mountain for another's storm, to be the loving mother for our own inner child. This is a profound training of the heart, but the heart's education is not yet complete. It is one thing to learn to cry with those who cry. It is another, and in some ways a more challenging, practice to learn to genuinely rejoice with those who rejoice. This is the practice of mudita, a word from the Pali language that translates as sympathetic or appreciative joy. It is the ability to delight in the happiness, success, and good fortune of others. While compassion is the heart's response to suffering, mudita is the heart's response to joy. It is the serene, unselfish smile that arises when we witness another's well-being. In a world that so often fosters competition and comparison, mudita is a radical act of generosity and a direct path to boundless joy. For most of us, when we hear good news about someone else's friend gets a promotion, a sibling finds a happy relationship, a rival receives public praise first, instinctual reaction is often not one of pure joy. If we are honest with ourselves, we might notice a subtle tightening in the chest, a quiet inner voice that whispers, "Why not me?" This is the voice of envy, the shadow side of desire. It comes from the ego's deep-seated belief in scarcity, the painful assumption that there is a limited amount of happiness, success, or love in the world. From this perspective, another person's gain feels like our loss. Their success somehow diminishes our own. This belief is one of the greatest sources of suffering, trapping us in a cycle of comparison and resentment. Mudita is the direct antidote to this poison. It is the conscious cultivation of the opposite view, the view of abundance. It is the understanding that happiness is not a finite pie to be divided up. It is a fire. When one candle lights another, the first candle's flame is not diminished. The amount of light in the room has simply doubled. Mudita is the joy of lighting another's candle with our own and celebrating the growing brightness. Imagine a small, close-knit village nestled in a valley. The villagers have all worked the fields together, planting and tending the crops through the seasons. The day of the harvest finally comes, and it is a time of great celebration. Now, imagine one farmer's plot has yielded an exceptionally bountiful crop. In a world of scarcity and envy, the other villagers might look on with jealousy, secretly wishing for his downfall. But in the village of Mudita, something beautiful happens. When the villagers see their friend's incredible harvest, their faces break into genuine smiles. They rush over to his field, not to take from him, but to help him bring in his abundant grain. They sing songs as they work. His good fortune does not feel like their loss. It feels like a victory for the entire village. Later, when a family in the village welcomes a healthy newborn child, the joy is not contained within the walls of their home. The entire village celebrates, bringing food and offering blessings. The joy is shared, multiplied, and reflected in every face. This is the heart of Mudita. It is the understanding that we are all villagers in this one great world. The happiness of one is a blessing for all. To practice Mudita is to choose to join the celebration rather than stand outside looking in with a resentful heart. Like all qualities of the heart, Mudita can be cultivated. We can train our minds to move from the habit of envy to the practice of appreciative joy. The practice can begin simply. Take a comfortable posture and allow your mind to settle. Now, bring to mind a dear friend, someone you love and respect. Think of a specific time when something wonderful happened to them. Perhaps you remember the look on their face on their wedding day, the sound of their voice when they told you they got their dream job, or the pure joy they expressed after completing a personal achievement. Instead of just thinking about the event, see if you can connect with the feeling of their happiness. Let their joy touch your own heart. Feel the warmth of their smile. And as you hold them in this light, you can offer them these phrases. My dear friend, I rejoice with you in your happiness. I celebrate your success and good fortune. May your joy continue to grow and blossom. Feel the genuine warmth that arises as you offer these wishes. Then, you can gently expand this practice. Bring to mind a neutral person, an acquaintance, and imagine something good happening to them. Perhaps they are enjoying a beautiful day with their family, laughing at a good joke, or simply feeling a moment of peace. Can you offer a small prayer of appreciative joy for them? I don't know you well, but I am happy that you are happy. May your joy continue. This practice dissolves the walls of indifference that separate us from most of humanity. A very practical way to cultivate mudita in daily life is to change your relationship with the media, especially social media. Often, our feeds are a curated highlight reel of other people's successes and happiness, which can be a powerful trigger for envy and feelings of inadequacy. We can transform this potential poison into a practice. The next time you see a post from someone announcing an engagement, a new baby, a successful project, or a beautiful vacation, pause. Instead of immediately comparing it to your own life, or scrolling past with a feeling of lack, take one conscious breath. Look at the photo. See the genuine happiness in their eyes. For just a moment, make the choice to be happy for them. Silently wish them well. I am happy for you. By doing this, you transform a mindless scroll into a mindful practice of opening your heart. You are actively rewiring your brain to find joy in the joy of others. The beautiful paradox of mudita is that this seemingly selfless practice brings an immense reward to ourselves. If your happiness depends only on your own personal good fortune, then your opportunities for joy are by definition limited. Life is a mix of ups and downs, and good things may only happen to you periodically. But if you can learn to feel joy in the happiness of every other being, your opportunities for joy become literally infinite. Every success story you read becomes a source of personal inspiration. Every loving family you see becomes a reflection of the heart's potential. Every beautiful work of art, every scientific breakthrough, every act of kindness between strangers becomes a reason for your own heart to feel glad. You are no longer a single, isolated player hoping to win a limited prize. You are a member of the audience of all of humanity, able to celebrate every single victory on the field. Your own heart becomes a much lighter, more spacious, and more joyful place to live. We have now explored 3 of the 4 great dwellings of the heart, the 4 immeasurables. We began with metta, the sunshine of loving kindness, the wish for all beings to be happy. We learnt to meet suffering with karuna, the gentle rain of compassion, the wish for all to be free from pain. And we have just explored mudita, the serene smile of appreciative joy, the ability to celebrate the happiness of others. These 3 qualities, love, compassion, and joy, are the active, engaged, and radiant expressions of an open heart. But for these qualities to be truly stable and unshakable, they must rest upon a firm foundation. What is it that allows us to love, to care, and to rejoice without being constantly thrown off balance by life's inevitable ups and downs, by gain and loss, by praise and blame? The foundation that supports this open heart is the 4th and final immeasurable. It is the quality of upekkha, or equanimity. It is the unshakable peace of a balanced mind. And it is to this profound state of inner balance that we will now turn our attention. We have journeyed through the radiant territories of the heart, cultivating the sunshine of loving kindness, the gentle rain of compassion, and the serene smile of appreciative joy. We have learned to wish for the happiness of all beings, to tremble in the face of suffering, and to celebrate the good fortune of others. These are the active, vibrant expressions of a truly open heart. But for this heart to remain open in the midst of a world that is constantly changing, a world of pleasure and pain, of gain and loss, it needs a foundation. It needs a deep and unshakable stability. This foundation is the 4th and final of the 4 immeasurables. It is the profound and quiet quality of upekkha, or equanimity. If metta, karuna, and mudita are the beautiful waves on the ocean's surface, upekkha is the deep, silent, imperturbable stillness of the ocean's depths. It is the quality that allows us to love, to care, and to rejoice with all our being, while remaining perfectly balanced and centered in the face of life's inevitable storms. It is absolutely essential to understand that equanimity is not indifference. This is the most common pitfall in understanding this profound quality. Indifference is a state of contraction, of numbness. It is a defense mechanism. When we are afraid of being hurt, we close our hearts and pretend we don't care. Indifference says, "It doesn't matter to me." It is a cold state, rooted in fear and aversion. Equanimity is the very opposite. It is a state of radical openness and profound warmth, a state of caring so deeply that you are willing to let go of your personal preferences and accept reality as it is. It is not that you don't care. It is that your care is so vast and unconditional that it is no longer dependent on things going your way. Equanimity is the union of a tender heart and a wise, spacious mind. It is the ability to engage with life fully and passionately while being utterly free from attachment to the outcome. Imagine a great ancient mountain. Its peak soars into the sky, and its roots are anchored deep within the earth. It has stood for millennia, a silent witness to the changing seasons. The winds blow against this mountain from all 4 directions. From the east comes the warm, gentle wind of praise and fame, carrying sweet scents and accolades. From the west comes the biting, cold wind of blame and criticism, carrying harsh words and condemnation. From the north comes the boisterous wind of gain and success, carrying with it wealth and victory. And from the south comes the mournful wind of loss and failure, carrying with it disappointment and sorrow. These are what the Buddha called the 8 worldly winds, the forces that constantly push and pull the untrained mind. But the great mountain remains unmoved. It does not lean forward to grasp at the sweet winds of praise and gain. It does not shrink or tremble before the harsh winds of blame and loss. It stands in its own magnificent stillness, allowing all the winds to come and go. It allows them to be, without being defined by them. To cultivate equanimity is to become this mountain. It is to find that unshakable center within ourselves that is not swayed by the ever-changing fortunes of the world. Our lives are a constant dance with these 8 worldly winds. We receive a promotion at work, and we are elated, gain. The next day, our project is criticized, and we are devastated, blame. We are complimented on our appearance, and we feel a rush of pleasure, praise. We experience a financial setback, and we are consumed by anxiety, loss. Our happiness becomes a fragile thing, entirely dependent on external circumstances we cannot control. We are like a leaf blown about by every gust of wind. The practice of equanimity is the practice of seeing these winds for what they are, impermanent, impersonal, and ultimately empty of any real power to define our inner state. When praise comes, we can receive it graciously without letting it inflate our ego. When blame comes, we can listen for any truth it may contain without letting it crush our spirit. We can experience the pleasure of success and the pain of failure, but we are no longer addicted to one and terrified of the other. We are the mountain, and these are just the weather patterns passing over our slopes. This leads to a profound shift in how we approach our lives. We begin to understand the difference between what we can control and what we cannot. We can only ever have control over our own intentions and our own actions. We can study for an exam with diligence and sincerity, but we cannot control the final grade. We can love another person with our whole heart, but we cannot control whether they will love us back. We can put forth our best creative work, but we cannot control whether the world will praise it or ignore it. The formula for endless suffering is to attach our inner peace to the results, which are fundamentally uncontrollable. The path to freedom is to pour all our energy and care into our intentions and actions, to act with as much kindness, wisdom, and integrity as we possibly can in this moment, and then to completely and utterly let go of the outcome. We do our part, and we let the universe do its part. We plant the seeds with great care, but we accept whatever harvest may come, be it bountiful or sparse. This is not passive resignation. It is the highest form of intelligent action, an action free from the desperate, anxious clinging of the ego. Equanimity is the ground that brings the other 3 heart states to their full perfection. Without equanimity, our love can become possessive, our compassion can become burnout, our joy can become giddy attachment. Upekkha provides the spaciousness and wisdom that holds them all. Loving kindness, when balanced with equanimity, becomes a love that does not demand anything in return. It is a radiant, unconditional warmth that is offered freely, regardless of how it is received. Compassion, when balanced with equanimity, allows us to be with immense suffering without being overwhelmed. We can keep our hearts open in the face of tragedy because our spirit is grounded in a deep and stable peace. Sympathetic joy, when balanced with equanimity, allows us to celebrate the happiness of others without any trace of envy, and also without clinging to their success or fearing its eventual loss. We rejoice freely, knowing all things are transient. Equanimity is the vast open sky that allows all the beautiful weather of the heart to unfold without obstruction. It is the great equalizer, seeing all beings as fundamentally equal in their desire for happiness and their wish to be free from suffering. It is the quiet heart of wisdom that loves all, cares for all, and rejoices with all, from a place of unshakable peace. With this profound stability of a balanced and equanimous mind, we are now prepared to look directly at the truths of existence, that would otherwise cause us to tremble. A mind that is constantly tossed about by the worldly winds cannot bear to look at the fundamental nature of reality. It is too frightening. But a mind that has cultivated the stillness of the mountain can look at anything with clarity and courage. We are now prepared to face the most pervasive and challenging truth of all, the law that governs every single aspect of our existence, from the life of a star to the duration of a single thought. We are ready to look into the heart of impermanence and to see it not as a curse, but as a source of profound beauty and liberation. We have rested in the stillness of the great mountain, cultivating the unshakable peace of equanimity. With this newfound stability as our ground, we are now ready to look directly at a truth so pervasive, so fundamental, that we spend most of our lives trying to ignore it. It is the engine of the cosmos, the rhythm that underlies every heartbeat, every thought, every sunrise. It is the universal law of impermanence, or in the Pali language, anicca. Everything changes. Everything that arises must eventually pass away. Nothing is permanent. This is not a philosophy or a belief system. It is the most observable fact of existence. The stars are born, and they die. Mountains rise and are worn down to dust. Seasons turn. Our bodies grow, age, and decay. Our thoughts and feelings are fleeting visitors, arriving and departing in the vast space of our awareness. And yet, despite the overwhelming evidence, the human mind is conditioned to resist this fundamental law. This resistance, this war against reality, is one of the deepest sources of our suffering. We dedicate our lives to the pursuit of permanence in a world where none exists. We seek permanent security, permanent wealth, permanent youth, permanent relationships, permanent states of happiness. We build our houses on the shifting sands of time and are shocked and devastated when the tide eventually comes in. This struggle against the current of impermanence is exhausting. It is the source of our clinging to the past because we cannot accept that it is gone. It is the source of our anxiety about the future because we fear we will lose what we have or not get what we want. The suffering is not caused by the fact that things change. The suffering is caused by the friction between our desire for permanence and the reality of constant flux. Peace does not come from winning the war against change, which is an impossible feat. Peace comes when we have the wisdom and courage to lay down our arms, to stop fighting the river, and to learn to move with its current. When we stop viewing impermanence as a curse, we can begin to see it as a source of profound beauty and meaning. In fact, it is impermanence that makes life precious. Imagine a flower that bloomed forever, never withering, never fading. Would we ever truly pause to appreciate its delicate beauty, its vibrant color? Or would we take it for granted, knowing it would always be there? Imagine if our loved ones were immortal, destined to live for eternity. Would we cherish each moment with them so deeply? Would we make sure to express our love, knowing we had an infinite amount of time? It is the fleeting, transient nature of the cherry blossom that makes its brief bloom so breathtakingly beautiful. It is the awareness that our time together is finite that gives our relationships their depth and sweetness. It is the knowledge that this day will never come again that makes this very moment a sacred and unrepeatable miracle. The fragility of life is not its weakness. It is the very thing that makes it a treasure beyond all measure. There is a deeply moving story from the life of the Buddha that illustrates this with heartbreaking clarity. A young woman named Kisa Gotami had an infant son who was the light of her life. One day, the child fell ill and died. Consumed by a grief so powerful that it bordered on madness, she could not accept his death. She picked up his small, lifeless body and went from house to house, from person to person, desperately begging for a medicine that could bring him back. Some people mocked her, others turned away in pity, but no one could help her. Finally, a wise old man, seeing her unbearable pain, directed her to the Buddha, saying, "He is the great physician. If anyone can help you, he can." Kisa Gotami rushed to the Buddha, laid her child at his feet, and pleaded for a cure. The Buddha looked at her with boundless compassion and said, "There is only one medicine that can help your son. I need you to bring me a single mustard seed." The woman's heart leaped with hope. But, the Buddha added, "This mustard seed must come from a house where no one, a husband or wife, a parent, a child, or even a servantess ever died." Filled with renewed determination, Kisa Gotami began her search. She went to the first house and asked, "Can you spare me a mustard seed for a medicine from the Buddha?" Of course, the woman of the house replied. But as she was about to hand it over, Gotami asked, "Has anyone in this house ever known death?" The woman's face fell. "Oh child," she said, "the living are few, but the dead are many. Just last year, I lost my husband." Kisa Gotami went to the next house, and the next, and the next. The story was the same everywhere. Every family had known loss. Every heart had been touched by death. As the day wore on, she sat by the side of the road, the truth of her journey slowly dawning on her. Her private, unbearable grief was not, in fact, private at all. It was the shared, universal condition of all beings. Loss was not a punishment visited upon her alone. It was woven into the very fabric of existence. She looked at the flickering lamps of the city as evening fell, watching them flare up and then die out. So too is the life of mortals, she thought. With this profound insight, her clinging began to release its grip. She returned to the Buddha, not with the mustard seed, but with the peace of acceptance. She understood that he had sent her not on a quest for a magical cure, but on a journey to find the truth. And in accepting the universal law of impermanence, she was finally able to grieve her child and find a path forward. This story teaches us that accepting impermanence is the gateway to peace. And this acceptance has a powerful, practical consequence. It brings our attention, with laser-like focus, to the supreme importance of the present moment. If everything is in flux, if the future is uncertain, and the past is gone, then this very moment, this very breath, is the only reality we ever truly have. Contemplating impermanence is not a morbid or depressing activity. It is a powerful call to awaken. It shakes us from our slumber of postponement. It urges us not to put off our joy, our kindness, our forgiveness, our dreams. The time to live fully, to love deeply, to be truly present for our lives is not tomorrow. It is always and only now. This includes the gentle, courageous contemplation of our own impermanence. In many cultures, death is a taboo subject, something to be feared and denied. But in the wisdom traditions, remembering that our own time is limited is considered a key to living a wise and meaningful life. When you remember that you will not live forever, the small things that you waste so much energy on, the petty arguments, the trivial anxieties, the pursuit of status seen in their true, insignificant perspective. What truly matters comes into sharp focus. Our relationships, the love we give and receive, the peace in our own hearts, our contribution to the well-being of others. Remembering that our life is a brief and precious gift inspires us to live with authenticity, integrity, and a sense of sacred urgency. So having cultivated the stability of equanimity, we can now learn to live in harmony with the law of change. We can learn to appreciate the beauty of the fleeting moment, to love with an open hand, and to let go with grace. When we truly accept that we cannot control the flow of life's river, a new question arises. If we are not meant to fight the current, to control the outcome, or to build permanent structures, then how are we meant to act? How do we navigate this constantly changing stream? This leads us to a different way of being, a way of acting that is not based on struggle and force, but on yielding, on intelligence, and on moving in harmony with the natural flow of things. It is the art of effortless action, and it is to this graceful way of living that we shall turn next. We have stood before the profound truth of anicca, the universal law of impermanence. We have seen that life is not a static state, but a dynamic, ever-changing river. Our old way of being, the way of the ego, is to fight this river. We build dams of denial. We try to row furiously against the current of change, and we exhaust ourselves in a futile struggle to control the uncontrollable. This way of being is rooted in tension, effort, and a deep-seated fear of reality. Having accepted the nature of the river, a new question arises. How then shall we live? How do we act in a world that is always in flux? The answer does not come from more effort or more control. It comes from an entirely different paradigm of action, a wisdom beautifully articulated in the Taoist tradition. It is the art of Wu Wei. These words are often translated as non-doing or non-action, but this can be misleading. Wu Wei is not about being passive, lazy, or apathetic. It is the art of effortless action, of spontaneous rightness. It is the highest form of effectiveness, an action that arises in perfect harmony with the natural flow of life. To understand Wu Wei, we must first distinguish it from mere inaction. Inaction is a stagnant pond, lifeless and inert. It is a state of resignation, of giving up. Wu Wei, on the other hand, is a mighty river flowing gracefully to the sea. The river does not try to flow. It doesn't strain or struggle. It simply follows its own nature, moving along the path of least resistance. Yet over time, its effortless power can carve canyons through solid rock. This is the nature of Wu Wei. It is not that you do nothing. It is that your doing becomes so aligned with the underlying current of reality, the Tao, that it feels as if nothing is being done. The action happens through you, rather than being forced by you. It is the difference between pushing a boulder up a hill and gently nudging it at the top, so it rolls down on its own. Most of our actions are driven by the anxious, calculating ego. They arise from fear, I must do this, or something bad will happen, or from ambition, if I force this, I will get what I want. This kind of action is tense, rigid, and often counterproductive because it tries to impose a fixed will upon a fluid reality. It is the boatman trying to row directly against a powerful current, exhausting his strength for very little progress. Wu Wei is the action that arises from a place of deep inner stillness and intuitive wisdom. It is the action of the master boatman. He does not fight the river. He has spent so much time on the water that he has developed a deep, intuitive feel for it. He can read the subtle currents. He sees the hidden eddies. He knows where the channel runs deep and swift. He uses the river's own power to carry him toward his destination, adding only a gentle, skillful touch of the rudder here, a soft paddle there. He arrives at his destination with ease and grace, not because he is stronger than the river, but because he has learned to harmonize with it. To practice Wu Wei is to become this boatman, to learn to be sensitive to the currents of our own lives. There is a classic Taoist story that perfectly illustrates this state of masterful ease. An old man who sold oil for a living set up his stand in a village square. Nearby, a master archer was putting on a display of his skill. The archer could hit a distant target with every arrow, and the crowd cheered his incredible precision. The archer was immensely proud of his abilities. The old oil seller simply watched, nodding calmly but without any great show of awe. The archer, a little annoyed by the old man's muted reaction, approached him and said, "You see my skill. Can you do anything so impressive?" The old man replied, "What you have is merely a matter of long practice." This response infuriated the proud archer. How dare you belittle my art? What can an old oil seller like you possibly do?" In response, the old man said nothing. He simply took a large gourd, which was used for storing oil, and placed it on the ground. Then he took a small bronze coin, which had a tiny hole in its center, and placed it over the mouth of the gourd. The crowd watched, intrigued. The old man then lifted his heavy ladle full of oil and, from a height, began to pour. A thin, golden stream of oil flowed from the ladle, passed perfectly through the tiny hole in the coin and into the gourd, without a single drop being spilled. When he was finished, he picked up the coin to show the crowd that it was still perfectly dry. The archer was stunned into silence. He asked the old man what his secret was. The old man smiled and said, "There is no secret. It is merely a matter of practice. I have done this so many times, my hand simply knows the way. It is nothing." His skill was so deeply embodied, so integrated into his being, that it had become effortless. The conscious, striving ego was not involved. His hand, the oil, the coin, and the gourd moved as one harmonious whole. This is Wu Wei. So how do we cultivate this state of effortless action? The answer is a paradox. We do not try to be effortless. Any effort to be effortless is just more striving. Instead, we cultivate the inner conditions from which Wu Wei can naturally arise. The first condition is stillness. It is only when we quiet the noisy, anxious chatter of the ego through practices like meditation that we can begin to hear the subtle, intuitive whispers that guide us towards skillful action. We must create inner silence to hear the music of the Tao. The second condition is presence. Wu Wei arises from a total absorption in the present moment. The oil seller was not thinking about the past or the future. His entire being was focused on the simple act of pouring. When we bring our full, undivided attention to the task at hand, whether it is writing a letter, cooking a meal, or listening to a child, our actions become more fluid, graceful, and effective. The sense of a separate doer begins to dissolve, and there is only the doing. This is the state of flow that modern psychology has identified, a state where action and awareness merge, and we lose ourselves in the activity. The third condition is trust. We must learn to trust the unfolding of life. We must trust our own intuition, the wisdom that arises from a quiet mind. We must let go of our rigid timetables and our white-knuckled grip on how we think things should be, and learn to be responsive to how things are. Sometimes the wisest action is to wait. Sometimes it is to take a step back. Sometimes it is to move in a direction we had not anticipated. This requires a deep faith in the intelligence of the universe and a willingness to be a dance partner with life, rather than its dictator. To live with the wisdom of Wu Wei is to move from a life of resistance to a life of grace. It is to learn that the greatest strength is found not in force, but in yielding. The willow branch bends in the wind and survives the storm, while the rigid oak tree cracks and falls. Water, the softest of all things, can overcome the hardest. By aligning ourselves with the natural way of things, we conserve our energy, reduce our inner friction, and accomplish more with far less struggle. This is not a philosophy of inaction, but one of supreme intelligence and effectiveness. The key to this artful way of living lies in our ability to be fully present with each moment as it unfolds. And so, our next step is to learn how to bring this quality of deep presence not just to our meditation cushion, but to every simple, mundane activity of our daily lives. We will learn to find the sacred in the ordinary. We have explored the profound wisdom of Wu Wei, the art of effortless action, which arises from a state of deep presence and harmony with the flow of life. This naturally leads to a practical question. How can we cultivate this state of presence not just in moments of high skill or deep contemplation, but amidst the ordinary, often chaotic, reality of our daily lives? For many of us, there is a sharp division in our minds. There is practice time, the 20 minutes we might spend on a meditation cushion, and then there is the rest of life, which often feels like a frantic rush from one task to the next. The true goal of this path is to dissolve that boundary, to allow the peace and clarity of our practice to infuse every single moment. This is the practice of everyday mindfulness. It is the understanding that your life, right now, in all its mundane glory, is the meditation hall. Your daily activities are the curriculum. We hold a very specific image of what meditation looks like. Someone sitting perfectly still, with eyes closed, in a quiet, serene environment. But this is only one form of training, like an athlete going to the gym to build specific muscles. The real purpose of that training is to be able to use those muscles effectively in the game of life. The posture itself is not the meditation. The quality of your attention is the meditation. Therefore, any activity, when performed with full non-judgmental awareness, can become a profound meditative practice. Washing the dishes can be meditation. Brushing your teeth can be meditation. Driving to work, folding the laundry, listening to your child, eating a meal, each of these is a golden opportunity to come home to the present moment, to practice being fully alive. The great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh taught this principle with beautiful simplicity, using the example of washing the dishes. He said that while you are washing the dishes, you should be completely aware of the fact that you are washing the dishes. You should not be rushing through them in order to get to the good part, the cup of tea, or the dessert that awaits you afterwards. The act of washing is primary. You are fully present for the warmth of the water on your hands, the scent of the soap, the feeling of the plate. Why? Because if you are thinking only of the tea while you are washing the dishes, you are not really alive during that time. You are a ghost, lost in the future, incapable of appreciating the miracle of life that is present in that simple moment. And what happens when you finally finish and sit down with your cup of tea? You will likely be unable to enjoy that either. You will already be thinking about the next thing on your to-do list, your mind lost in plans and worries. You will miss the warmth of the tea, its aroma, its taste. You will miss your entire life, which is a succession of present moments, by constantly trying to get to the next one. His simple, profound instruction was this: wash the dishes to wash the dishes. Don't wash them to get them clean. Don't wash them to get to the tea. The purpose of washing the dishes is the act of washing the dishes itself. In that simple, dedicated attention, you will find peace and joy. Let's apply this to another simple act, like drinking a morning cup of coffee or tea. Usually, this is an automatic, unconscious ritual. We gulp it down while checking emails, reading the news, or planning our day. We taste almost none of it. To turn this into a mindfulness practice, we can slow down and engage all our senses. As you prepare it, listen to the sound of the water boiling. Watch the steam rise. Inhale the rich aroma of the coffee grounds or the tea leaves. As you hold the cup, feel its warmth and weight in your hands. Before you take the first sip, simply be present with it for a moment. And when you do drink, let the liquid touch your tongue and notice all the complex flavors. Feel its warmth as it travels down your throat. Try to do this for just the first 3 sips of your drink. This is not about adding another chore to your day. It is about transforming an existing routine from an unconscious habit into a conscious moment of peace and pleasure. You can choose any activity. When you take a shower, instead of being lost in thought, feel the sensation of the hot water on your skin. Listen to the sound it makes. Smell the scent of the soap. When you are walking from your car to your office, feel the sensation of your feet making contact with the ground. Notice the feeling of the air on your face. Look at the sky. What these practices do is transform the parts of our day we previously considered in between time, the boring chores we had to endure to get to the good stuff. Suddenly, these moments become the practice itself. Our opportunity for finding peace is no longer limited to 20 minutes on a cushion. it expands to include our entire waking life. The amount of time we have for practice becomes immense. In this, our breath remains our most faithful friend and anchor. As you are washing the dishes, you will inevitably notice that your mind has wandered off into planning a meeting or replaying a conversation. The moment you notice this is a moment of awakening. You are not doing it wrong. This is the practice. Gently, without any self-criticism, you can smile to yourself, acknowledge the thought, and then guide your attention back to the physical reality of the present moment, back to the feeling of the warm water, back to the sight of the bubbles, back to the sound of the plate being rinsed. Over and over again, you come home. The breath is the thread that leads you out of the labyrinth of your thoughts and back to the solid ground of your direct sensory experience. When we commit to this practice of everyday mindfulness, something remarkable begins to happen. We are no longer distracting ourselves from our lives with constant thought. We are showing up for the reality of our experience, moment by moment. This means we start to see our own patterns with much greater clarity. We become more present not only for the pleasant sensations, but also for the subtle undercurrents of dissatisfaction, irritation, and craving that run through our day. We notice the flash of anger when another driver cuts us off. We feel the pull of craving when we see an advertisement. We sense the subtle anxiety that arises when we are faced with uncertainty. We are no longer running from our suffering. We are beginning to see it in high definition as it arises and passes away in real time. This direct, experiential seeing of our own inner workings is the most fertile ground for true wisdom to grow. It is the laboratory in which we can finally understand the nature of suffering and its causes, not as a theory, but as a lived reality. This leads us directly to the heart of the Buddha's teachings, the Four Noble Truths, and a deeper look at the nature of dukkha, or suffering, itself. Through the practice of everyday mindfulness, by bringing a gentle, curious attention to the simple acts of our lives, we begin to see with startling clarity. We see the river of our thoughts, the rising and falling of our emotions, the patterns of tension in our bodies. And as we watch, we begin to notice a persistent, underlying hum in the background of our experience. It is a subtle feeling of incompleteness, a low-grade anxiety, a sense that something is not quite right, or that something is missing. Even in moments of joy, there is often a quiet fear that it will not last. This pervasive, subtle friction is the reality of the human condition. The Buddha, in his first and most essential teaching, gave this reality a name. He called it dukkha, and his entire path is a compassionate and practical guide to understanding and ending it. This teaching is known as the Four Noble Truths. It is not a dogma to be believed, but a diagnosis to be verified in your own experience, offered by the greatest physician of the human spirit. The first noble truth is the truth of dukkha. The word dukkha is often translated from the Pali language as suffering, but its meaning is far more nuanced and profound. Yes, dukkha includes the obvious forms of suffering that we all know. The pain of sickness, the sorrow of old age, the grief of death, the anguish of losing someone we love. This is the acute pain of life, and it is undeniable. But dukkha also points to a more subtle, chronic form of suffering. It is the pain of not getting what we want, and the pain of getting what we don't want. It is the stress of constantly striving to hold on to pleasant experiences, which are by their nature fleeting, and the effort of constantly pushing away unpleasant ones, which are an inevitable part of life. And most subtly of all, dukkha is this pervasive sense of unsatisfactoriness that we have discovered through our mindfulness practice. It is the feeling that even when things are good, they are not quite enough. It is the inherent friction that comes from being a conscious being, full of desires for permanence and security, living in a world that is fundamentally impermanent and insecure. The first noble truth is simply the Buddha as the great physician, gently touching the place that hurts and saying, "Here, this is the illness. Let us have the courage to acknowledge it without turning away." The second noble truth is the truth of the origin of dukkha, or samudaya. Once the physician has diagnosed the illness, he identifies its cause. And the Buddha's diagnosis was revolutionary. He said that the cause of our suffering is not out there. It is not bad luck, or a cruel world, or other people's actions. The root cause of our suffering is internal. He gave it the name tanha, a word that means thirst, craving, or desire. It is a deep, instinctual, and relentless thirst that drives the unawakened mind. This thirst takes three primary forms. First, there is the craving for sense pleasures, the constant desire for more pleasant sights, sounds, tastes, smells, and feelings. It is the engine of addiction and consumerism, the belief that the next experience will finally satisfy us. Second, there is the craving for existence or for becoming. This is the deep-seated thirst of the ego to be more, to be better, to be permanent. It is the ambition for fame, for power, for a lasting legacy. It is the clinging to our own life and our own identity. Third, there is the craving for non-existence or for not becoming. This is the energy of aversion, of hatred. It is the violent wish for an unpleasant feeling, an unpleasant person, or an unpleasant situation to simply cease to exist. It is the mind that says, "I can't stand this, get it away from me." This relentless cycle of craving and aversion, this endless thirst for things to be different than they are, is the fuel that feeds the fires of our suffering. The third noble truth is the truth of the cessation of dukkha, or nirodha. This is the physician's prognosis, and it is the most hopeful news we could ever hear. A cure is possible. There is a way to be free from this illness. This is not a vague promise of a heavenly afterlife. It is the statement that it is possible, right here in this life, to extinguish the fires of craving that cause our suffering. When the thirst of tanha is quenched, when the clinging mind lets go, the suffering ceases. This state of cessation is known as nirvana. The word nirvana literally means to extinguish or to blow out, as one blows out a candle flame. It is the extinguishing of the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion. It is not a state of annihilation, but a state of supreme and unshakable peace, freedom, and clarity. It is the mind's natural, radiant state, which is revealed when it is no longer at war with reality. The third noble truth is the physician assuring us with complete confidence that our condition is not terminal. There is a path to perfect health. The fourth noble truth is the truth of the path that leads to the cessation of dukkha, or magga. The physician, having diagnosed the illness, identified its cause, and confirmed that a cure exists, now prescribes the medicine. This medicine, this path to freedom, is the Noble Eightfold Path. It is a comprehensive and practical guide for living a human life in a way that leads to wisdom, peace, and liberation. It is not a set of commandments to be blindly followed, but a set of skills to be cultivated. The path is comprised of 8 interconnected factors, which are often grouped into 3 categories. First is wisdom, which includes right understanding, seeing things as they truly are, starting with these 4 noble truths and right intention. Resolve to cultivate kindness, to let go of ill will, and to cause no harm. Second is ethical conduct, which includes right speech, speaking truthfully and kindly, without gossip or harshness. Right action, acting in ways that are compassionate and do not harm others. And right livelihood, earning, a living in a way that does not cause suffering to oneself or others. Third is mental discipline, which includes right effort, the gentle, persistent effort to cultivate wholesome states of mind and release unwholesome ones. Right mindfulness, the practice of being fully present that we have been exploring, and right concentration, the ability to unify the mind and focus it powerfully, leading to deep states of meditative calm. These four truths form a perfect, logical, and empowering framework. The Buddha, as the physician says, the illness is dukkha, a fundamental unsatisfactoriness. The cause of the illness is tanha, the internal thirst of craving and aversion. A complete cure is possible, a state called nirvana, the extinguishing of the fires of suffering. The prescription, the medicine to bring about this cure, is the Noble Eightfold Path, a way of living ethically, training the mind, and developing wisdom. This is not a system that asks for blind faith. It is an invitation. It is a hypothesis to be tested in the laboratory of your own direct experience. The Buddha did not say, "Believe what I say." He said, "Here is a path. Walk it for yourself and see where it leads." This path is not an abstract philosophical ideal. It is a practical, step-by-step guide for how we use our thoughts, our words, and our actions, moment by moment, to walk out of the prison of our own suffering and into the open air of freedom. And it is to a more detailed exploration of this path that we will now turn. We have stood at the threshold of the Four Noble Truths, the profound diagnosis of our human condition, and the promise of a cure. The prescription for our suffering, the medicine offered by the great physician, is the Noble Eightfold Path. When we first hear this, it can sound ancient, grand, and perhaps a little intimidating, like a steep ladder we are expected to climb. But this is a misunderstanding. The path is not a rigid, linear sequence of steps. It is better understood as a beautiful and intricate design for a whole life, a life lived with wisdom, integrity, and peace. Imagine weaving a beautiful piece of fabric. The fabric is made of 8 different kinds of thread, each with its own color and texture. For the fabric to be strong, beautiful, and complete, every thread is essential. Each thread interweaves with and supports all the others. The Noble Eightfold Path is this fabric, and our lives are the loom upon which it is woven. Let us now look at each of these 8 precious threads. The path begins with the cultivation of wisdom, or prajna in Sanskrit. This is the foundation that gives context and direction to everything else. The first thread is right understanding, sometimes called right view. This is the map for our journey. It is the commitment to see reality as it truly is, not as we wish it to be, and not through the distorting filters of our fear and desire. At its heart, right understanding is the deep, experiential comprehension of the Four Noble Truths we just explored. It is seeing the nature of dukkha in our own lives, recognizing the craving that fuels it, knowing that freedom is possible, and understanding that this very path is the way to that freedom. It is also the clear seeing of impermanence, of interconnectedness, and of the constructed nature of the ego. Without right understanding, we are simply wandering in the dark. The second thread of wisdom is right intention, sometimes called right thought. If right understanding is the map, right intention is the compass that we hold in our heart. It is the conscious and deliberate purification of our motivation. It is aligning our why with wisdom. Traditionally, this is broken down into 3 parts. First, the intention of renunciation, which is the intention to let go of clinging, to release our grasp on the things that cause us to suffer. Second, the intention of goodwill, which is the active cultivation of loving kindness, the sincere wish for the well-being of all beings. And third, the intention of harmlessness, which is the cultivation of compassion, the firm commitment not to cause suffering to any living creature, including ourselves. Right intention ensures that the journey is not just a selfish quest for personal peace, but one that is imbued with kindness and care for the entire web of life. The next section of the path is ethical conduct, or sila. This is where wisdom moves from an inner understanding into an outer expression. It is how we manifest our wise intentions in our interactions with the world. The third thread is right speech. This is the practice of using our words to heal rather than to harm. It asks us to abstain from 4 kinds of unskillful speech: lying, divisive speech, gossip that turns one person against another, harsh speech, insults, anger and abuse, and idle chatter, mindless talk that wastes our own and others' precious time. Instead, we cultivate speech that is truthful, kind, helpful, and spoken at the right time. We begin to see our words not as weapons or distractions, but as powerful tools for creating connection and understanding. The fourth thread is right action. This is the embodiment of harmlessness in our physical deeds. At its most basic level, it means abstaining from killing, from stealing, and from sexual misconduct. But its spirit extends much further. It is the practice of acting with generosity, honesty, and respect for the lives and property of others. It is about moving through the world in a way that is graceful and considerate, a way that reduces the suffering in the world rather than adding to it. It is integrity in motion. The fifth thread, right livelihood, extends this ethical conduct to the area where we spend so much of our time, our work. It is the practice of earning a living in a way that is honorable and does not cause harm to others. This clearly excludes professions based on exploitation, violence, or deceit, such as selling weapons, dealing in intoxicants, or fraud. But on a more personal level, it is an invitation to reflect on our own work. Does it align with our deepest values? Does it contribute positively to the world? Or does it, even in subtle ways, create more stress, division, or suffering? Right livelihood asks us to bring the whole of our professional life onto the path, making it a part of our practice, not separate from it. The final section of the path is mental discipline, or samadhi. This is the inner training, the gymnasium of the mind, that gives us the strength and clarity to walk the path effectively. The sixth thread is right effort. This is not a grim, white-knuckled striving. It is a gentle, balanced, and intelligent application of our energy. It is the effort of a skilled gardener. This skillful effort has 4 aspects: the effort to prevent unwholesome, negative states of mind, like anger or jealousy, from arising, the effort to abandon them if they have already arisen, the effort to cultivate wholesome, positive states of mind, like kindness or patience, that have not yet arisen, and the effort to maintain and nurture those positive states that are already present. It is the wise management of our own inner landscape. The seventh thread is right mindfulness, or sati. This is the very heart of the path, the central quality we have been cultivating throughout our entire journey together. It is the capacity to be fully present, to remember to pay attention to our experience in this moment without judgment. It is right mindfulness that allows us to know if our speech is becoming harsh. It is right mindfulness that shows us when our intention has strayed. It is right mindfulness that helps us apply right effort. It is the master thread that illuminates all the others and weaves them together. It is the quality of wakefulness itself. Finally, the eighth thread is right concentration, or samadhi. This is the fruit that grows from the sustained practice of right effort and right mindfulness. It is the ability of the mind to become unified, to rest upon a single object of attention without wavering or distraction. In formal meditation, this leads to deep, blissful states of peace and insight. In our daily lives, right concentration is the ability to be fully present with one thing at a time, to bring a focused, undistracted mind to our work, our conversations, and our experiences. In our age of constant digital distraction, the simple ability to concentrate is a superpower. It is the stable, clear platform of mind from which the deepest wisdom can arise. These 8 threads, then, are not separate steps. They are a holistic system, each supporting the others. Your understanding of reality informs your intentions. Your intentions guide your actions and speech. Your ethical life creates a mind free from guilt and remorse, which makes it easier to concentrate. A concentrated mind sees reality more clearly, which deepens your understanding. And so the wheel turns, a beautiful, upward spiral leading toward freedom. This is not a path for monks in a faraway monastery. It is a design for living, available to every one of us, right here, in the midst of our complex modern lives. It is the practical, compassionate guide to weaving a life of beauty, wisdom, and profound peace. Having walked this entire path, from the diagnosis of suffering to the intricate design for its cessation, we arrive at a place that is both the beginning and the end of the journey. It is the source from which true wisdom arises, and it is the ultimate destination of a mind at peace. Before we conclude, we must pay homage to this final precious element of the path. We must explore the profound power and richness of silence. We have walked the great path. We began as a restless mind, lost in the river of thought. We found our anchor in the breath, our home in the body. We learned to be with the storms of emotion, to see the invisible threads of attachment, and to accept the universal truths of impermanence and interconnectedness. We have explored the elegant design of the Eightfold Path, a complete guide to a life of wisdom and peace. And where does this path, in its fullness, ultimately lead? It leads us here, to this moment, to this quiet, spacious awareness that is listening to these words. It leads us to the treasure that was here all along, buried beneath the noise of our own striving. It leads us to the profound and healing power of silence. We live in a world that is terrified of silence. Our days are filled with a constant barrage of noise, both external and internal. The sound of traffic, the ping of notifications, the endless stream of news, podcasts, and music. And when the outer world is quiet, the inner world often becomes even louder, with its relentless chatter of plans, worries, and memories. We have become so accustomed to this noise that silence can feel uncomfortable, even threatening. We mistake it for emptiness, for loneliness, for a void we must immediately fill with some form of distraction. But this is a tragic misunderstanding. Silence is not an absence, it is a presence. It is not a void to be feared, but an essential nutrient for the soul, as vital as food is for the body. In the fertile ground of silence, our experiences are digested, our psychic wounds are healed, and our spirit is restored. In a world drowning in noise, silence is the rarest and most precious of treasures. We must learn to distinguish between two kinds of silence. There is a dead, empty silence, which is merely the absence of sound. This is the awkward silence in a tense room, a silence that can feel heavy and disconnected. But there is another kind of silence, a living, vibrant silence. This is the silence that is full of awareness. It is the quiet stillness of the forest, where you can hear the rustle of a single leaf. It is the vast silence of the night sky, pregnant with the light of 1 billion stars. This is the silence we touch in deep meditation. It is not empty, it is spacious. It is the silence of the silent observer we met at the beginning of our journey. It is the quiet, aware space in which all the noise of our lives can arise and pass away without disturbance. This living silence is our true nature. It is the canvas upon which the entire painting of our life is drawn. There is a famous Zen story about a great scholar who came to visit a master to inquire about the nature of Zen. The scholar was a man full of his own knowledge and opinions, and he spoke endlessly, explaining his own theories and interpretations. The master listened patiently, then began to pour tea into the scholar's cup. He poured until the cup was full, but he did not stop. The tea began to overflow, spilling onto the table and the floor. The scholar, alarmed, cried out, "Stop! It is over full. No more will go in." The master calmly set down the teapot and replied, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup? Our minds are this cup, filled to the brim every day with the noise of our thoughts, beliefs, and anxieties. We are so full of our own inner chatter that there is no room for anything new to enter. There is no space for wisdom, for insight, for intuition. Silence is the act of emptying our cup. It is the conscious choice to stop talking, both externally and internally, so that we can finally begin to listen. It is in this inner quiet that the deepest aspects of our intelligence can finally be heard. Our rational, analytical mind is a powerful tool, but it is not our only source of wisdom. There is a deeper, more intuitive knowing that can only arise from a place of stillness. This is the quiet voice of your intuition, the gut feeling, the sudden creative insight that seems to come from nowhere. These insights rarely appear when we are straining and thinking hard. They often come in moments of relaxation, when the conscious mind has let go while we are on a quiet walk, in the shower, or just as we are waking up. It is the silence that creates the space for these whispers of wisdom to be heard. True creativity is not born from a noisy, agitated mind, but from a quiet, receptive one. Just as a calm lake can perfectly reflect the moon and the stars, a silent mind can perfectly reflect the truth of reality. In our modern culture, we are conditioned to believe that our value lies in our productivity, in our doing. The idea of doing nothing, of simply being silent and still, can feel radical, lazy, or even wasteful. We feel a constant pressure to be busy, to be achieving, to be improving. But this endless doing comes at a cost. It disconnects us from the very ground of our being. The practice of embracing silence is the practice of learning to simply be. It is the discovery that we do not have to earn our own existence through constant activity. Our being is, in itself, a complete and sacred reality. To sit in silence is a courageous act of rebellion against the tyranny of endless becoming. It is a declaration that just for this moment, we are enough, we are whole. We do not need to add anything or subtract anything. We are simply resting in the profound peace of our own presence. So, how do we find this treasure in our noisy lives? We can start small. We can create pockets of silence in our day. We can choose to drive to work with the radio off. We can take a 5-minute break from our computer, not to check our phone, but to simply sit and look out the window. We can go for a walk in nature without listening to a podcast. And most importantly, we can continue our formal meditation practice, the daily appointment we make to sit down, empty our cup, and listen to the living silence within. When we sit, we are not trying to force the silence. We are simply creating the conditions for it to reveal itself. We notice the noise of our thoughts, and we gently let it go, returning again and again to the anchor of the breath. With each return, we are deepening our connection to the quiet space that lies beneath the noise. We have now traveled the entire inner landscape, from the chaos of the untamed mind to the profound stillness of our true nature. We have explored the path. We have learnt the skills. We have been given the map. We have arrived here in this quiet, spacious awareness. This silence is the culmination of our journey. It is the space in which all the lessons we have learnt can settle, integrate, and become a part of who we are. Before we conclude our journey together, let us rest here for a moment. Let us honor this silence. Let us drink deeply from this well of peace, for it is from this quiet center that a life of wisdom, compassion, and true freedom is born. We began our journey together in the quiet desperation of 3 a.m, staring at a ceiling that had become a screen for our anxieties. We were a soul in turmoil, exhausted not from labor, but from the relentless internal effort of trying to hold our world together, the silent struggle of trying to outrun our own minds. Look how far we have traveled since then. We have stood on the bank of the river of thought and realized we are not the current, but the silent witness. We have found the loyal friendship of our own breath, an anchor that can always bring us home to the present moment. We have returned to the forgotten wisdom of our bodies and learned to hold our most difficult emotions with the tenderness of a loving mother. We have seen the invisible threads of attachment that create our suffering and have begun to loosen their grip. We have found the beauty in impermanence, the grace in effortless action, and the profound wisdom of an open, compassionate, and balanced heart. The journey was never about fighting a war against the mind and winning. It was about having the courage to see that the war itself was an illusion, a struggle against a phantom of our own creation. It has been a journey from holding on to letting go, and what we discover after all this is a simple and revolutionary truth. Peace is not a destination. It is not a prize to be won after years of arduous practice, nor is it a heavenly state that is separate from our ordinary lives. Peace is not the absence of storms. It is the discovery of the unshakable mountain that can stand with grace in the midst of any storm. Peace is our fundamental nature. It is the vast open sky that was always here, temporarily obscured by the passing clouds of thought and emotion. It is the deep, silent ground beneath our feet, which we could not feel because we were so busy running. You do not need to build peace, or find it, or earn it. Your only task is to gently, compassionately, clear away the dust of fear, clinging, and misunderstanding that hides the profound peace that is already, and always, your birthright. So, as we conclude our time together, know this: you have everything you need. The tools are not outside of you. The most powerful anchor in the universe, your own breath, is with you right now. The wisest teacher you will ever meet, your own direct experience, is available in every moment. You do not need to wait for a perfect time, a quiet place, or anyone's permission to be at peace. You can come home in an instant. The path is now clear, and the choice is always yours. You can choose to once again pick up the heavy burden of the past and the future, to clench your fist and struggle against the river of life, or you can make a different choice. You can choose to set the burden down, to open your hand, to take one conscious, healing breath. You can give yourself the gift you have always deserved, the gift of your own gentle, loving presence. You don't have to struggle anymore. You can allow yourself to be at peace, right here, right now.